as we give these drivers just a couple of moments to get their cars warmed up and certainly get their emotions under control. It's in a race as intense and as heartfelt as this one, a race that has such sheer and unadulterated emotional meaning for these drivers that battle for victory. It builds and builds over time. And now that you anticipate the start of this contest, the drivers are left by themselves as the ceremonial pace vehicles get set for the start of this contest. And as the ceremonial pace vehicles gradually draw away, our race officials motion the front row cars of Fred Bear and Bruce Tunney into action. Young, John Connor Jr., the number 20, and Dwayne Lee in the number 15 are now motioned into place as we work to the first of our pace laps here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. And behind these drivers, over at the northwest corner of the racetrack, the formation begins of the alternates line as we have ourselves large numbers of cars and drivers will be ready for the start of this one when their time comes. And as Kenny St. John continues to lead that pace truck around, and the Viper leads our Indianapolis Speedrome pace car, who, if previous experience holds true, is going to have more than a bit of a workout tonight. Usually the pace car is out there for about 90 laps during a race that usually runs about 400 laps. We're just about set for the start of this contest. Now again, this is just a warm-up for the ceremonial and formal wave lap here at the Indianapolis Speedrome, where we're going to be expecting that everybody is going to be on their feet and waving to these drivers as they come through the next time by. This is one of those special moments in the world of automobile racing where we urge the fans to salute those vehicles and those drivers as they get set to take the enormous risks of figure eight racing here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Now this next time by, as the cars and the drivers move through the north end of the racetrack, we ask everybody in the grandstands to stand to and salute these drivers. Wave a program, wave a handkerchief, wave a cap. Make sure that these drivers know that you appreciate the tremendous effort they have gone throughout an entire race year, racing in places like the Flat Rock Speedway and the Louisville Motor Speedway and the Sports Zone and the Indianapolis Speedrome and a dozen other tracks as they get set for the start of our main event. Again, now it's your time to stand to and salute these drivers. Let's get on your feet and wave to these guys as they get set for the 3-hour World Championship event. It's time to salute these drivers as they are ready to take it to the limit and beyond. For 3 hours of racing thrills and excitement, let's salute these drivers as they get ready for the 21st World Championship. And now we're getting set for the start of this event. We've got maybe one more lap to go before we turn these drivers loose as one of our track workers picks up the last bit of debris from one of these vehicles as we get set for the start of this World Championship chase. Now, one of the things that you have to watch for on the starts of these races is not necessarily what happens in a crossover, but what happens in turn number one. The first corner, these figure eight races can be extremely dangerous as the crossover. As we get set for the start of this race, most likely one lap from now. And the pace car lights are on. That's the signal that the race will start this next time by if everybody holds on to a clean disciplined start. Pace car gets out of the way. Bear in the number 94 and Bruce Tunney in the number 4 will lead them at a nice gradual pace out of turn number 4. The end of discipline is here. The beginning of that has arrived as we come across the start-finish line. Begin the World Figure 8 Championship, and the fireworks light up the night sky. The first leader of the race is Bruce Tunney. Here's Fred Bear taking the lead away in turn number 3 of the first lap of this race. They touch in turn number 3, and that's the first contact in this 3-hour race that'll see a wealth of crashing and banging. Bear leads as we come to lap number 2. The second spot goes to Bruce Tunney in the number 4. Third place to the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Fourth place is the fight between the number 20 of John Connor Jr. and the defending champion in the number 1, Jack Dulcie Jr. Dulcie takes the spot as we finish this lap. Already the crossover, the number 4 of Bruce Tunney has to hold up for lap traffic at the crossover. That allows the number 23 of Eddie Van Meter to move past both of those drivers as already the crossover confrontations have begun. We're watching the number 23 of Van Meter as he moves around the number 02 car to see if that machine might be leaking something, although I don't think that's a problem. First driver to go a lap down. Last starter, Michael Kennedy, and in trouble at the intersection for a moment. Jerry Whitten also drops a lap. Two cars have crashed in the back of the pack. The number 91 of Lanham and the number 71 across. They get disengaged as we come down to a two-car fight for the lead in heavy crossover traffic. The leaders, Bear and Dwayne Lee, have to hold up as they go past Robbie Loving. A car spun in turn number 4. That's the number 20 of John Connor Jr., one of the top starters in this race, who's trying to be quick to keep him going one lap down. We have ourselves already a 3-car breakaway battle for the lead as Garrigus in the 0, double 0, and Wright in the number 0 car are in trouble. Garrigus may have stalled the double 0 car. We'll watch that machine to see if he can get restarted. He will, but he already has gone a lap down as we come to lap number 6 and midway through the second minute of this 3-hour race. Robbie Loving's in trouble in the number 35. He may have slowed down for a while. I maybe just be trying to go through the intersection. I'm not certain. As the number 94 of Bear, true to form, is up in front as the number 26 of David Morris almost got caught by the crossover traffic, and a phalanx of 6 drivers coming across the bow of the leaders now forces them to go wide as it's a 3-car, make it a 4-car fight for the lead as they almost get into Jerry Brown, and number 23 of Van Meter gets caught out by traffic at the intersection and loses about 20 or 30 lengths to the 3-car fight for the lead. It's the drivers that were in contact and combat for the lead last year that are running up in front. At the intersection, it's already wild already. 94 Bear has first place. Second place, the number 15 of Lee. Third place, and on the attack, the number 1 of Dulcie as they come through the intersection. Way back in fourth place is the number 23 of Van Meter. Then you've got the 27 of Deal and the number 4 of Bruce Tunney running in your second group. At the intersection, the number 5 of Fenwick holds up. Dulcie barely escapes from a crash with Brown and Dalvin as we come to finish lap number 8, as we are now midway, now closing down the end of the third minute of this 3-hour race. And it's a nose-to-tail, side-by-side fight between the number 94 of Bear and the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, who just barely get past traffic at the intersection. In trouble with broken right front suspension is the number 0 of Dan Wright. The 19th starter is coming off the track, and that will mean we'll start to see the first of our alternates rolling into the contest here shortly as Bear and Lee come through the intersection just ahead of Butch Lanham. Those drivers running nose to tail are just ahead of the number 1 of Dulcie. Number 1 of Dulcie, who runs in third. Fourth place is the number, watch out of the intersection. Lee almost got into 2 cars, the number 2X of the rookie, Muncie, and the number 21 of Andy Vertrees. And Bear almost got hit by the number 77 of Ford, as already we're in a circumstance where these drivers are battling hard for the lead, hard for the victory, treating it as they predicted as it was going to be a 3-hour sprint. Bear, over the last couple of laps, has now picked up a 1-turn advantage. London lap advantage goes ways. He had to slow down for Deal coming through the intersection. 4 minutes into this race, and we've already seen a full race woods of miraculous escapes. Bear hitting the brakes to keep him running in the number 27 of Deal. That elevates the number 15 of Dwayne Lee up to first place, drops Bear to second in the number 94, and places the number 1 of Dulcie in third place, midway through the 4th minute of the 1-hour race. And now those drivers cut through the intersection, almost encounter the spinning 0 car, and the 44 of Jerry Brown slipped around the corner to try to keep from getting hit at the intersection as the leaders are charging through with reckless abandon. But now Bear, having lost the lead at the crossover, is trying to get it back in turn number 2 of lap number 16 in heavy traffic. They fan out 4 wide through the intersection as Bear now gets picked off for second place by lap traffic, including the number 2X of Muncie and the number 00 of Garrigus Sr., and that will place him back in 3rd place and put Dawsey up in the runner-up spot. As I see it, your 4th place driver is the number 23 of Van Meter, and then you've got the number 4, Bruce Tunney, and now Van Meter comes off the racetrack and he got hit. There's a spin over in turn number 2 as the number 4 of Bruce Tunney got hit and spun out by the number 72 of McMurtry, as somebody also was up there leaking water, and now Bruce Tunney, right to be considered one of the favorites of this race, is sitting facing the wrong way in turn number 3, 1 lap down, and he gets back underway. The driver that is stalled for the moment looks like it's the number 72 of Curtis McMurtry. Now, McMurtry can't get running here shortly. We'll put out the yellow to go get him out of the way. McMurtry still is not running as the leaders fan out and almost run into him a couple of times. In the middle of that heavy traffic, the number 94 of Bear has moved back into the runner-up spot as the yellow comes out for the first time. Now, under the caution, the drivers slow down and hold their formation and line up behind the pace car. And that means that a couple of guys like Douthit in the number 221 and the number 71 of Coles will get laps back. Bad luck on that sequence for Bruce Tunney, the number 4. What happened was that apparently one driver dropped some water. It may have been the 02 of Michael Kennedy, and in contact, while they slipped on that water, you had the number 4, Bruce Tunney, who took a hit from the number 72 of Curtis McMurtry. That sent Bruce Tunney into a spin. He stalled just long enough to go 1 lap down. We're closing down to the end of the 7th minute of this race as the number 23 of Van Meter comes back onto the track after making a fast pit stop. Leader of this race, as we close down to the 7th minute of this race and work out of lap number 21, will come to green shortly. Be the number 15 of Lee, 2nd place the number 94 of Bear, and 3rd place the number 1 of Dawsey. We'll have to double check and find out who's running in 4th place. Connor had spun the number 20 car. I'm not sure if he's gone a lap down. I think he may be a lap down to the number 20 after that early spin, and he had to stop at the intersection anyway. Got passed by several cars, including Buddy Vertrees, the number 21, and the number 27 of Deal. That's where the hot fight is so far, as Donnie Garrigus Jr., our first alternate, about ready to come onto the racetrack 7.5 minutes into this 180-minute race. And as Garrigus comes onto the racetrack, he says, where am I getting into? Because there's about 40 cars coming ahead of him as the leaders sashay through the intersection, and one of them got hit by Dwayne Lee, got clipped, and Dwayne Lee keeps on going to the bent bumper, and he still rolls, but the number 2X car of Muncie has spun after getting clipped by Dwayne Lee, the crossover, in the first substantial crossover crash of this race, and that has slowed Dwayne Lee down, but Lee still rolls in 3rd place. Muncie is still rolling. He may have broken an axle, but at least he can back the car more or less out of the way. That happened right just before the 8-minute mark of this race, and Muncie will get that car into the pits and out of the way. 94 Bear and 1 Dawsey running 1st and 2nd. Lee in the number 15 running ahead of the number 4, Bruce Tunney. We're certain that Bruce is a lap down. We're not sure about the number 20 of Connor or the number 21 of Vertrees, and the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore is still racing for position, no doubt about that. Number 72 McMurtry lost a couple of laps. Now Bill Tunney Jr. and the number 33 of Doug Drake check up for Bear's 94 and the number 1 of Dawsey. Bear and Dawsey continue to run at full speed coming into the 3rd corner of lap number 27 as we close down the end of the 9th minute of the 1st hour of this World Championship event. While Bear and Dawsey cut through the traffic time and time again, the drivers that we're watching are in a 2nd pack of cars that are about a quarter lap behind the leaders, including the number 4, Bruce Tunney, who is, we're certain is a lap down, the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, who's running in 3rd place as we see it. Then you've got the number 20 of Connor. We'll have to double check to see if he is on the lead lap or not. the number 21 of Bertries, the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore, and the number 72 of McMurtry. The number 84 of Garrigus Jr. went for a spin over in turn number 3 as the leaders fan out around lap traffic. And there's the number 5 of Rich Fenwick, among others, who are in danger of going a lap down. The number 21 of Dalton fell back some distance at the start of this event. That's the orange and purple number 21, who ducks underneath Donnie Garrigus Sr. In fact, Dalton bounced into Garrigus after he ran over a marker tire. And at the crossover, those drivers, Fenwick, Dalton, and now Barrow almost ran into the number 21 of Bertries and the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore as it gets crazy here at the end of the 10-minute mark of this first hour of the World Championship. Now Dalton goes one lap down as it's heavy traffic at the crossover once again. This may be the, watch out, the intersection. The number 23 of Van Meter almost got nailed by Connor and then by Ford. And somehow they keep on going. As Doug Gregg has a close escape at the intersection, but these close escapes at the crossover are almost routine, except that how can you evade disaster for 180 minutes at a time? Bear and Dawsey continue run first and second. Now, where is Dwayne Lee, the driver that we're calling in third place? He is running, as I see it, about a quarter lap behind the leaders. Here we come to the end of the 11th minute of this race as we watch the tremendous fight between first and second place, 94 Bear and 1 Dawsey, as they continue to cut through the traffic with absolute reckless abandon. There's the number 35, being driven by Robbie Loving, looking a little slow out there as he tries to cut through the intersection. And there's the number 20 of John Connor Jr. almost taking out the leaders at the intersection. As the crossover traffic is proving to be as incredibly intense as anything we've ever seen. It's as if you're going to have absolute disaster on every lap, and somehow they escape as Loving goes into the pits. The leaders are still cutting through traffic. They're trying to put the number 33 of Doug Gregg and the number 44 of Jerry Brown a lap down. As they check up at the intersection, Rackley goes on through. Foston, the number 71, and Whitten, the number 2, make evasive actions to keep from getting nailed by these guys. As Bear, the number 94, and the number 1 of Dawsey keep on running at an intense pace midway through the 12th minute of the first hour of this World Figure 8 Championship. Tim Gibson, the second alternate in the number 95, will now move on to the racetrack at 11 minutes and 46 seconds of the first hour of this World Figure 8 Championship. 2 alternates have been placed in the race so far. At the intersection, Buddy Bertries almost gets plastered by the orange number 27 of Dalton and the number 5 of Fenwick, as those drivers have now gone one lap down and they had to be considered contenders for the World Championship. And the number 94 of Bear and the number 1 of Dawsey are doing a impressive job of eliminating most of the lead lap contenders here in the opening part of this race. But remember, since this is an endurance contest above everything else, as we see the number 91, watch out, the number 90, watch out, the number 24. I don't know which near crash to call. What we're watching is the number 91 of Lanham crawling through the intersection, almost got hit by a dozen cars, it seemed like, including the number 21 being driven by Buddy Bertries. And one of the leaders, the 94 of Bear, the number 1 of Dawsey, those drivers continue to charge around nose to tail, unhindered by everybody else. The scoreboard shows the number 4 of Bruce Tunney as running in third place. It's my impression that Tunney lost a lap early in the race, and your actual third place car, by my reckoning, would be the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, because that's the way I'm looking at things unofficially. Midway through the 14th minute of this race. Behind Dwayne Lee, we'll have to double check to see if the number 20 of John Connor Jr. is running on the lead lap. I believe the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore runs on the lead lap as well. Lead change in turn number 3 and 4 of lap number 41, midway through the 14th minute of this race. The number 1 of Dawsey becomes the third leader of this race as he nudges by the number 94 of Bear. Now Dawsey almost gets into number 71 of Coles in the crossover, and another typical Indianapolis Speedrome close encounter at the figure 8 as you've got slow cars and fast cars coming through the intersection time and time again at close encounters, and his Tunney almost gets nailed. There's Bertries ahead of a phalanx of 4 drivers, and the leaders come through just behind Dwayne Lee, who again I am unofficially calling your third place driver. Dawsey, the number 1, a brand new car running in first place. Second place, the 94 of Bear. We've checked with our scorers, and they tell us that Bruce Tunney is running on third place, that he managed to get his lap back under the caution flag. So Our unofficial conjuncture on the BA is incorrect, and Bruce Tunney is running in third place according to our scores. The number 4 and fourth place would be Dwayne Lee in the number 15. At the intersection, there's the number 20 of John Connor Jr. who's running pretty well. Then you've got the 71 of Coles, the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore, the number 2 of Bill Tunney Jr., and the number 21. Watch out for the crossover crash between the 98 of Geragos Jr., Geragos Sr., the number 44 of Brown, as Brown got pile-driven by the number 00 car. Brown barely manages to keep on going, even though Geragos almost flipped his car when he literally almost ran over the number 44 Brown. And Geragos Sr., the 00, the 7th qualifier in this race, now goes into the pits and makes a stop at the 1/4 mark of the first hour of this race. Now we're developing what our scores tell us is a fight for third place in heavy traffic between the number 4 of Bruce Tunney and the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Lee comes to the outside of Tunney in turn number 2. That'll be an inside move going into the third corner, and he'll make the move on Tunney and take the position back as Tunney is trapped behind another car. But Tunney will return the favor out of the fourth corner and come to the third spot, only to be passed for that third position by the number 15 of Dwayne Lee as they sandwich the number 72 of McMurtry coming out of turn number 2. 3 wide for a moment as Lee in heavy traffic tries to avoid the cars that are bouncing off the marker tires and each other directly ahead of them as they watch out for Jerry Brown's already torn up number 44, and John Connor Jr. almost runs into the number 38 of Rackley as Lee edges ahead of Tunney as they move past Witten's number 2. Where are the leaders as we see the number 35 of Loving coming back onto the racetrack? It's wheel to wheel for the lead, side by side, inside move for the number 94 of Bear, takes the lead away for the number 1 of Dawsey in turn number 3 of lap number 50, midway through the 17th minute of the first hour of this World Championship race. Leaders are in heavy traffic. They are cutting around the 95 of Gibson, the number 26 of Morris, and the number 21 of Hertries, who loses another lap. And now Bear tries to come to the inside of the number 71 of Coles, which is always a difficult job. 2 cars spin over in turn number 1. The number 4 of Bruce Tunney in a collision with the number 20 of Connor. Tunney keeps on going, and Connor running a little off the pace as now Bear moves and passes with ease the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore to deposit him 1 lap down. And the number 31 of Bobby Whitaker moves on to the racetrack. He's the 4th alternate. So far, we have not seen the 3rd alternate of the number 11 of Gary Bedell, although he's eligible to come into the race shortly. And what of the leaders? Bear has a lead of about 2 lengths over the number 1 of Dawsey. And those drivers are closing up on Bill Tunney Jr., who we thought was going to be a major factor in this race. Either he is doing the David Pearson act and taking it easy, or he's simply not able to run with the pace of the leaders, as Tunney and Bear almost collide coming out of the second turn of lap number 54, midway through the 18th minute of the first hour of this race. Bear edges ahead of Bill Tunney Jr., putting the lap down. Tunney fights back as they run 3 wide with Brown in the inside in the already damaged number 44, and Brown almost bounces off the number 20 of Connor in Bear's team car. Now the number 31 of Whitaker bounces off a marker tire, trying to run for the number 20 of Connor. And there's Whitaker being passed by the number 44 of Brown. That is not a race for position because Whitaker came onto the racetrack about 18 minutes after Brown started the event. And there's the number 1 of Dawsey taking advantage of that traffic, coming out of turn number 2 to again take the lead. As again, traffic has made the difference each time that Dawsey has come to first place in this World Championship event, working into the 19th minute of this world title chase. But Dawsey is still in heavy traffic. Now here's the problem Dawsey has as they run 4 wide into turn number 3. Dawsey is at the mercy of the crossover traffic as 3 cars make that 5 cars of crash. The 0 of Wright, the 35 of Loving, the 84 of Geragos Jr. also in that crash, along with the number 91 of Lanham and the number 31 of Whitaker. They all get disengaged. They all keep on going. No caution. That's typical of the World Championship as well. You'll have multiple car crashes, and the drivers know they're not going to get the yellow immediately, so as a result, they'll get back into the fight as fast as they can. Leaders are still in heavy traffic for the first time in a while as they go 5 wide at the intersection. And out of Kenny, Rackley was in the middle of 6 cars in the crossover. They were all going in different angles, and he lived to tell the tale for the time being. So the number 1 of Dawsey holds up for Rackley, Mike St. John, and several others. And hasn't St. John had a quiet start to the race? We wonder if he's turned from a Charger into a David Pearson lookalike. As the number 31 of Whitaker slipped through the intersection and almost collected the leading number 1 of Dawsey. at the crossover. It's getting intensely heavy. We've got about 35 cars out there, and most of them are at the intersection at any one time as they come from all angles, fighting for survival, trying to get through at full speed and just break in each other's way. But the crossover spot was even wilder in turn number 1, where Steve Frost, the number 71 car, just keeps on going. And the number 71 of Coles almost got nailed by the number 15 of Dwayne Lee at the intersection. And this all in about 30 seconds time. Now things have calmed down for an instant as the number 38 of Brackley almost gets into the side of the second place, number 94 of Bear. 4 wide of the intersection once again as cars battle for position and nail each other going into the first corner. The 23 of Van Meter nailed the number 5 of Fenwick. Those guys are almost teammates, but not quite. Now they charge wheel to wheel into the third corner, and right behind them, Dawsey's number 1 got slammed by the number 21 of Dalvin, who's trying to keep from losing more laps after a couple of pit stops, and the leaders almost encounter the number 38 of Rackley. There's the leaders' challenge right now. They are closing up on heavy traffic, about 8 cars ahead of them, and going crossways to them. At the same time, you've got the number 38 of Rackley. So that's the double challenge for our leaders right now here in the World Figure 8 Championship. And you saw the number 91 of Lanham wanted no part of that. He backed down while Rackley's charged straight through, and Dwayne Lee through just ahead of Green, the number 33 of Gregg, and the number 31 of Whitaker. The number 38 of Rackley is the guy that's driving with absolute reckless abandon. He has come through the intersection a couple of times at full speed, not caring who is there, and he almost got the number 23 of Van Meter that time. And in the meantime, our leaders are still in the back of about 8 drivers trying to keep on going, and one of them is the driver who we unofficially identified. Watch out, there's Rackley almost wrecking out the lead, number 1 of Dawsey, and costing him the lead again as the number 94 of Bear almost got nailed by Rackley, who've been watching go through the intersection at absolute full speed with no regard for anybody else. He has now cost first place to the number 94 Bear. The number 72 McMurtry got a slow start after stopping at the intersection. Now get back in the way. That was a frightening moment for him. All of that happened in the first half of the 22nd minute of the first hour of this World Figure 8 Championship. 3 wide in turn number 1, and the middle of that 3 wide battle is the number 94 of Bear, who's trying just to survive as he goes around the number 11 of Gary Bedell and almost hooks Bedell going into the third corner of the 68th lap of this race. And at the intersection, the number 26 of Morris almost got plastered by the 38 of Rackley, who was running wheel to wheel with Dwayne Lee's number 15. That is not for position. Now Rackley and Lee come to the intersection. They look straight at the side of the number 20 of Connor and somehow keep on going. No collision that time. With Chris Green being on the racetrack, that means we are through the 7 alternates position. The 5th and 6th alternates I have not seen. That would be Watch out, the crossover. Bruce Tunney almost got into the number 71 of Charles Coles. I have not yet seen the 5th and 6th alternates of David Bussey or of Joe Carlton. And as Donnie Garrigus Sr. prepares to come back onto the racetrack, the number 1 of Dawsey got hung up that time with the number 72 of Curtis McMurtry, and that falls further and further behind Bear. Bear now has a 1/4 lap advantage in the 1997 World Figure 8 Championship. That time Dawsey almost collided with Mike St. John at the intersection on lap number 71 of the leaders. The 94 Bear comes out of turn number 2, looks at the intersection, finds a gap, holds up. Now there's Dwayne Lee coming through. Everybody slows down. They get restarted, and once again in the middle of them is Rackley, and Bruce Tunney finds a gap between his brother and Eddie Deal of the crossover, keeps on going and makes the move work. In the meantime, we see the number 31 of Bobby Whitaker decide to wait for traffic to clear. That can take as long as it does at 38th Street here in Indianapolis, and he had to wait for about 30 seconds. That means he loses a couple of laps in the process. And now there's Fred Bear bouncing off the 4th corner and the number 33 of Doug Gregg. And Gregg has to wait up while everybody else keeps on going. There's Dawsey in 2nd place, hesitating an instant to keep from smashing into Bruce Tunney, as the gap between 1st and 2nd place is 6.1 seconds. And we're moving through the 23rd minute of the first hour of this World Championship event. And smoke from the number 2X car as he gets back in the way. That's Michelle Muncie, who had been out of the race for about 20 minutes after his car was damaged in that collision with Dwayne Lee. In fact, that's an interesting thing to note. Remember that Dwayne Lee was involved in that crash with Muncie at the crossover, which is so far the only crossover hit in this event. Well, Muncie has come back for repairs after he had the rear end of that car torn up and is now circulating around trying to make laps. Well, watch out the crossover. Charles Dawes in the number 71 of Gilsney. Keep on moving this side until the crossover, the number 5 of Fenwick and the number 20 of John Connor Jr. They keep on going. They could have been disasters, but and now the number 94 there in the collision with the number 2 of Jerry Wick. Slows nothing intersection as Bear's car will damage. We'll find out here shortly. As we come into turn number 3 and 4, all the tires are up on Bear's car. He keeps on rolling, but that will cut down on his lead as Bear encounters some bad luck. Down to 2.1 seconds, lead first and second place as Dawson and Dwayne Lee, second and third place drivers, nearly smash each other at the crossover. Now Bear looks for room in the intersection. He gets it. Dawson looks in the intersection room. Does not find it all. Between Lee and the number 91 of Lanham. Now Bear can run free in lap traffic, but the crossover is going to start to test him as Dawson slows down into the intersection. He went over the crossover, and there goes number 31 off the track, and the number 41 and the number 2X. That was the rookie for Michelle Muncie and the number 31 of Whitaker, and the number 41 of Lee is going to come off the track for a moment. Old man Foster stays out there. Now Foster Sr. is the 8th alternate. Into the 26th minute of this World Figure 8 Championship. It has now come down to my reckoning 3 drivers on the lead lap. And in a race that has been one of the most competitive over the years, this one has turned out to be a 3-car breakaway that has been kind of an unusual pattern for these World Figure 8 Championships. But Bear has trouble as now he finds himself only 2.1 seconds ahead. Rossi at the intersection almost got into Connor and Gibson, and somehow barely kept on going. And again, by my reckoning, there are only about 3 or 4 cars left on the lead lap. Here comes through the start-finish line, just barely ahead of the number 1 of Dawsey, as these drivers are running about 2 seconds off the race pace, but that's because of the intensely heavy traffic. And going into the wall, the number 71 of Steve Frost with an assist from Bruce Tunney coming out of turn number 4. And there's some smoke from the old man Foster, number 41 of the intersection. The ease gets back underway. I'm not sure if Frost can keep on going. He might have had one corner of the car smashed in. Yes, he does have suspension damage to the left front of that car, but I'm not sure he realizes how bad the car was hurt. And as he meanders through turns number 1 and 2, we watch the white number 71 of Steve Frost. He's going to try to keep on making laps regardless. And now Frost through the intersection. Even with a damaged car, he may not be able to make this corner as the number 12 of Mike St. John barely avoided disaster. The crossover. Frost is off the track after his damage. Also, in the south lobe of the infield, slowing down, the number 27 of Eddie Deal, one of the top qualifiers, is in the infield and out for the time being. Bruce Tunney almost got smashed by 6 drivers, including the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, the 3rd place driver. We come to lap minute number 28. Here are drivers charging through the intersection at all angles, and so far they've all managed to avoid each other. And now some smoke for the number 91 of Butch Lanham. He keeps on going, and there on the racetrack, Mike Nelson, the 9th alternate in car number 93. As it stands right now, unofficially, after the 75th lap and working the 86th lap now, the leader, 94 Bears, 2nd place, the number 1 of Dawsey, and 3rd place, the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, the only drivers on the lead lap. Watch out, cars crash in turn number 1, and a heavy cloud of smoke around the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore, and another car that will bring out the yellow, as somebody may have leaked some fluid on the racetrack and will come down the caution for only the 2nd or 3rd time in this event. The pace car has to take a big risk in this type of racing because the pace car has to rush out and pick up the leader, and it takes a lot of courage to do so because the pace car is coming through that same sort of intersection traffic that almost catches out all of these other drivers. As we had mentioned, so far we are 28 minutes into this contest, and with 87 laps finished, the lead belongs to the number 94 of Fred Bear Jr., and running in 2nd place, the number 1 of... In the meantime, here is Dave Argabright of National Speed Sport News and freelance racing fame. Dave, you have been sitting here watching this for the last couple of seconds as you watch the guys all but wrecking each other here at the intersection. Your eyes have been wide open, and you're acting like, frankly, you can't believe what you've seen here so far.
I can't believe it, Kevin. I am absolutely, completely impressed with these race drivers. I've seen a lot of different races, a lot of different places, but these guys are truly outstanding.
Now, what we've seen before, I mean, you've had a chance to see some of the great sprint car drivers at Eldora, at Terre Haute, even the old New Bremen Speedway. You've seen late models run every place from Winchester to Salem to the old Queen City Speedway. You've seen the 500, you've seen the Brickyard 400, you've even seen Bubby Jones. What makes this different?
Well, to me, Kevin, the amazing thing is twice a lap you've got to make some major decisions right at the intersection, and unlike a lot of racetracks where you've got a focused crossover, you can go anywhere to miss somebody, and it's just astounding to me that the ability these guys have to avoid one another. It's very, very impressed.
And of course, we'll be reading about this, I'm sure, next Thursday in Speed Sport?
Well, that's the plan. If I don't faint up here and somebody has to ride it for me, that's the plan.
We've got 2 or 3 backup riders here ready in case. So thanks a lot, Dave Barger. National Speed Sport News for giving us your impressions and your observations on this intensely wild racing we've had here at the Indianapolis Speedrome so far. And again, we are just in the early stages of this World Figure 8 Championship. We have a lot of racing still to go as we're near halfway through the first hour of this race, and you're talking about 90 times 6. That's 90, 190 times 6 is, well, we're almost talking about 500 laps, really, at this pace? If that's 90 times 5, that would be 90 times 6, rather, that'd be 540. We'd be talking about 500 laps at this pace. I can't believe it. I wonder if my calculations are wrong, but we are looking at possibly a record pace for these leaders, and that gives us an indication of why things have been so wild so far. Again, we're down to 3 drivers on the lead lap. The number 94 of Bear up in front. Second place is the number 1 of Dawsey. Third place, the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Unofficially, fourth place should have the number 2 team of Bill Tunney Jr. But now we notice that Tunney's car is off the track for the first time. Tunney is now making a pit stop, and we're getting ready to get back into the fight. Then you have the number 21 of Buddy Birchby's running unofficially in 5th place. 6th place would have been the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. He stays on the racetrack after his spin. 7th place, the number 38 of Rackley. 8th place, the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. 9th place, the number 5 of Rich Finley. 10th place, the number 20 of John Connor Jr. is a couple of laps down. Then the number 12 and the number 33 of Doug Reagan is spinning is 5 laps down as we come back to the restart. The 44 of Jerry Brown races for a moment with the number 94 of Bear. And now those drivers are both disengaging as Bear pulls away and Brown drops back. And they're going to second place. For the 32nd minute of this event as it starts to get hot once again. And the crossover traffic is starting to congeal all over the place. The 94 of Bear, the number 1 of Dawsey, coming through the intersection just ahead of the number 23 of Van Meter, who is out of the top 10 unofficially, and the number 44 of Jerry Brown, who is also running out of the top 10. In the meantime, there's a lot of frustration and concerned looks over in the area of the pits where the number 2T of Bill Tunney Jr. as that car is jacked up and the crew is looking over the rear end. The impression you get is that it might have been a differential failure on that car that caused the number 2T to pit and caused the oil leakage that caused the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore to spin. If that's the case, then that would end the championship hopes of Bill Tunney Jr. for another year, in a year that's been more than a bit frustrating to Bill Jr. after, well, so many things went wrong for him at the end of the late model championship. There are 4 stop cars in the intersection, and a 5th one. Mike St. John spins coming out of turn number 2. It gets restarted in a cloud of smoke just as the leaders come through the opposite direction, and the number 2X of Muncie pulls off and makes another pit stop. Still 2 cars stopped near the crossover, the 84 of Garrigus Jr. and the number 31 of Whitaker. As holding up for the leaders, the 12 of St. John and the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. St. John moves around Lee. That is not for position as Garrigus and Whitaker finally get restarted. Here come the leaders across the bow of Connor Morris and Garrigus Sr. There come the leaders once again, and they've got a problem. they're running smoothly so far, but notch out as the cars are thick at the intersection. Leaders coming through. 94 Bear and 1 Dawsey are moving into lap traffic. Several machines directly ahead of them. And as they come through the intersection, there's cross traffic. It's going to be exceptionally dangerous for the leaders here over these next 5 or 6 laps. And at the crossover, there's the number 0 car. Dan Wright stopped. He gets restarted. Leaders come through. They just barely avoid Vertrees, the number 21. And now the 94 Bear, the 1 of Dawsey, are cutting through that traffic as hard as they can. While Dwayne Lee, the 3rd place driver, is mired in traffic. I guess either... Watch out, the crossover! The 23 of Van Meter spears the number 44 of Brown. That's Brown's 2nd hit of the crossover. Van Meter keeps on going. Brown appears to have a broken axle and a flat tire on the right rear. Brown limps away. We stay under green, no caution. It takes more than that to bring out the yellow in the World Figure 8 Championship as Brown limps off the track and out of the race. 4 wide for drivers at the crossover. Going in one direction and coming right in behind that pack, you've got the number 94 of Bear and the number 1 of Dawsey in intense fighting at the intersection coming out of turn number 2. Heavy crossover traffic. Here come the leaders. They just barely get through. 4 wide in the crossover in one direction, 2 wide in the other. And the number 77 of Ford and 91 of Lanham are stopped in the crossover. Lanham backs out of the way. Ford comes on through. Here comes the leaders around Ford. And somehow they manage to get away with it every time. And all of that in the first 100 laps of the World Figure 8 Championship. And now we're in the middle of the 36th minute of this World Championship chase. And we watch as the drivers still coming from all directions. Now Bear's still on the march on Dawsey. Over the last couple of laps, Bear's pulled this advantage to about 10 car lengths on Dawsey. Coming out of turn number 4 to finish lap number 105. Midway through the 36th minute of the first hour of this 1-hour figure 8 endurance race. Bear cutting through the traffic in the crossover, fighting as hard as he can, pulling away from Dawsey. He almost got pile-driven by the number 84 of Garrigus Jr., who hit the marker tire and almost flipped on top of Bear's car. Coming out of turn number 4, gets restarted and continues. Watch out, he doesn't get restarted. He stalled. Now he gets running again. Looks for a place to go to the intersection. There is no way to go. And so he'll cut in the opposite direction and keep on going that way. Well, there's trouble. There's something wrong with Chris Green's number 22. When he came to a stop in the intersection, it looked like there was flame coming from the right front wheel well. And as he stops, the leaders come flying around him. I guess Green's okay now, but we saw suddenly what looked like flame or fire. Yeah, I think he's got a wheel bearing problem. We'll have to watch Chris Green in the number 22 car, the blue number 22, and now there's the number 2 of Bill Tunney Jr. coming back onto the racetrack, but he has lost about 5 to 10 minutes of time as his brother Bruce almost gets destroyed by about 10 cars coming to the intersection. One of those cars was the number 94 of Fred Bear Jr., the leader, and they try to get through the intersection ahead of the number 1 of Dawsey. In fact, the number 4 of Tunney literally pushed Andy Vertrees through the intersection ahead of Dawsey's car, and they'll do it again coming out of turn number 2 as the leaders go into turn number 1 of lap number 111. And where, might you ask, is the number 15 of Dwayne Lee? He is in danger of going a lap down. The 3rd place driver is about 8 car lengths ahead as Vertrees and Bruce Tunney continue to cut through the intersection in tandem. Now, most of the cars on the racetrack are in about a half-lap group that are being assaulted lap and lap again by Bruce Tunney and the number 21 of Buddy Vertrees. And there's the number 20 of John Connor Jr. spinning in turn number 3. He is high-centered on the north marker tire. That could bring out a caution. Connor's car is stuck so firmly on that marker tire that I don't think the drive wheels are touching the ground. And it looks as if we're going to go to caution here in a moment to get Connor off that marker tire. There is the yellow. The yellow is now displayed and will send a push vehicle out to get Connor's number 20 off of that marker tire. And through all of that, the driver that has got to be grateful in seeing that yellow come out is the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Lee was within a few car lengths of going 1 lap down to the number 94 Bear, the leader of the race, and the 2nd place number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr. During this caution, which comes out with 38 minutes and 20 seconds elapsed in the first hour of this 3-hour race. Again, your top 10 after 100 laps completed. First, 94 Bear. Second place, 1 Dawsey. Third, 15 Lee. Fourth, the number 21 Vertrees. Fifth place, the number 4 Bruce Tunney. In sixth place, the number 38 of Rackley. Seventh place, the number 5 of Rich Fenwick. Eighth place, the number 20 of John Connor Jr. Ninth place will be the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore, and in 10th place, the number 12 of Mike St. John. Connor's going to lose some time because that car is stuck on the marker tire over in turn number 3, and that will slow him down because the drive wheels are not touching the ground, and we'll have to bring the wrecker out to pick up that car and lift it off the marker tire. Now, as soon as that is done, if Connor can drive away, he will be allowed back into the race with no loss of position, so Connor will be back into it shortly if he's lucky enough to have the car undamaged by that contact. Car lights are out. We're going to go green this next time by. Still, the battle continues between Bear in the number 94 and Dawsey in the number 1. They'll get it on coming out of turn number 4 and roll to the restart. And in the middle of that, you'll have Mike St. John in the number 12. And as Robbie Loving and Wright get enveloped by the 6 abreast battle going into the first corner, St. John trying to get back one of his laps. But St. John, who over our last check was running in 10th place, has a lot of laps to make up as Robbie Loving continues to circulate slowly around the racetrack. So here's a revelation as Mike St. John brings the field out of turn number 4 as we have cars colliding. It's another 3-car crash involving the third-place driver, Dwayne Lee, the number 15. This is going to be an important point. Can Dwayne Lee get restarted and stay on the lead lap? The answer is yes, but just barely. Here's Dwayne Lee racing for a chance to stay on the lead lap, and he does so just ahead of St. John. Bear, the leader of the number 1 of Dawsey. But if Garrigus, the number 84, can't get restarted, will come down to caution. Dwayne Lee will go around to the tail end of the lead lap, and St. John will get his lap back, except that now there's St. John getting lapped by the number 12, 94 Bear, and it'll be up to the scores to decide if St. John gets his lap back or not. And, oh no, the pace car almost got hit by Dan Wright under caution. We are not making this up. And there's Dwayne Lee almost running into Lanham during caution. Midway through the 43rd minute of the first hour of this race, Dan Wright wanted to get on through, and he almost ran into the side of the pace car, which we've almost seen A.J. Foyt do a couple of times. So we've got about 35 cars on the racetrack. Now, we started 28, so we've actually increased the number of cars we have on the track. Let's count that one more time. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. So we've actually increased the number of cars we've had on the racetrack. We've told you that the World Championship is unusual. Normally this time in a conventional race of 3 hours time, we would have lost some cars. But here in the World Figure 8 Championship, we've actually increased the number of cars on the track, and we've run 43.5 minutes. We'd certainly never see anything like this in the Little 500, where sometimes they don't have 30 cars left after the first lap. Pace crack. Everybody else charges around, and there's St. John to the number 12 who did not get his lap back, who's trying to do it all over again. Again, we watched Dwayne Lee, the number 15. He's been in 2 crashes so far. He still runs in 3rd place as he tries to run from the tail end of the lead lap, running in 3rd place. But again, if you just survive in 3rd spot, then you have a chance of picking up a good finish. We see a car coming out, one of the alternates. That's the 93. Watch out of the crossover. Mike St. John almost got blasted by Clear Press Racing in the crossover, including Dwayne Lee. And as Nelson slows to the intersection, still between Bear and 94 and the 1 of Dawsey. come the leaders. Traffic heavy in the intersection. Dawsey had to go wide to avoid those cars. Almost got plastered by 6 machines. Crossover crash between the number 26 of Morris and the number 11 of Bedell. Hard hit at the intersection brings out the caution. The 11 of Bedell was headed northbound. The 26 of Morris was headed southbound. They wrecked, ripping off each other's inside front tires and brought out the caution. And now you'll find out why they call the World Championship of Figure 8 Racing the Festival of Wreckers. And we are now 125 laps into this event at the 1/4 mark of the race. And that confirms our suspicion that if we maintain this will set a massive number of laps. We are going to have something in the range of 500 laps at this pace if we don't have too many more cautions. And 500 laps, if we keep up this pace, this would be the second largest number of laps ever completed in a World Figure 8 endurance race, and the second largest and the largest number of laps by far under this format where we no longer put out the red but slow down the cars under caution. Now the drivers are remaining in their cars. The drivers are okay. There's no doubt that the drivers are okay, even though their feelings and other things may be hurt as a result of that wreck. And their crew members are certainly going to be at the ready with welders and replacement A-arms and other parts that may be necessary to get these machines back into the race. What the race officials are now trying to do is to figure out the best way to disengage these cars so they can be placed back into the race. So Morris is out in the number 26, former late model rookie of the year. That car goes up on the hook. Now, one of those cars looked like it had the front wheel all but torn off, and at first glance I couldn't tell if that was Morris in 26 or the number 11 of Bedell. We'll find out shortly, because one of those cars, believe it or not, might be able to more or less drive off the track. And here comes the second wrecker. Normally we have 3 wreckers assigned to this World Figure 8 Championship, and now you understand why. Actually, we've had fewer crashes than usual so far, but we've also had more near escapes than usual. So as the wreckers do their job, we watch as the racers circulate under yellow, and as before, we've noticed that the battle for the lead has been between 2 drivers for most of this contest, the 94 of Bear and the number 1 of Dawsey. Both of those drivers have stayed fairly clean throughout this event, which is more than we can say for Dwayne Lee, who's been involved in 2 crashes. The first one knocked his bumper askew on the front end, but left him able to race. The second incident has caved in the left side bodywork of the number 15, but left the car capable of running again. The wreckers now pick up the damaged number 26 of Morris and the number 11 of Bedell. Those cars will be brought back into the pit area. Most likely they'll be repaired and put back into the event here shortly. That means we're only a couple of laps away for the restart, and we'll go back to green probably in the 51st minute of this race. now the pace car has the field under tow. And again, the stories on this restart will be two drivers will try to get laps back, the number 12 of Mike St. John and the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore, who have staged to the front of the field. And I'm certain that pursuing them will be potential front runners such as the number 4 of Bruce Tunney and the number 20 of John Connor Jr. and the number 2 of Bill Tunney Jr. We're going to try to overwhelm the leaders and get back up to speed. And of course, we'll be watching the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, third place driver, still the last guy on the lead lap, who's been trying to play the David Pearson, Cale Yarborough role by kind of holding back here at the start. As we come to the green flag, jousting for position, Bear just ahead of St. John in turn number 2 of lap number 133, and they almost overwhelmed the number 02 car coming through the crossover once again. Michael Kennedy learning a lot about this form of the World Figure 8 Championship. Bear and Dawsey pull away. St. John and Doubt and Rodney Sizemore not able to stay with them so far. And every time coming through the intersection, as Kim Gibson is meanders through the crossover, we see the number 41 of Foster Sr. slow down and kind of tiptoe through there and then get restarted. And now we see the number 94 of Garrigus Jr. slow down as well. At the crossover, there's the number 94 Bear bouncing off the number 12 of St. John and using the traffic. The number 1 of Dawsey comes back to first place. And Dawsey gets through there as Bear falls back several spots, actually passed by St. John and the number 5 of Fenwick as Dawsey pulls away to a one-turn advantage. And now Bear almost runs into the back end of St. John, and now the number 4 of Bruce Tunney has moved around Bear as well. So will Bear accept the fact that he's in second place, almost a quarter lap back now since the restart, or will he try to charge back to the front? He's got a lot of work to do because there's extremely heavy traffic. There's a spin by the number 38 of Kenny Ragley, who loops him coming out of turn number 4, and looks like he has something broken to the front end of that car. He will go into the pit area to make a stop. Dawsey has the right side of his car caved in, left side of his car caved in from that collision. There's a quick bump between the number 71 of Coles and the number 44 of Brown. They keep on going. Again, in that same confrontation that saw Bear drop back, Dawsey moved up, but he's got the left side of the bodywork caved in just ahead of the rear wheel. Now trouble is the number 21 of Dalton has had something blow up going into the third corner, and Dalton almost got plowed by the number 94 of Bear, was racing wheel to wheel with the number 93 of Nelson, and Bear kept on going through, and he almost put Nelson into the wall in the process as that melee blocks a whole bunch of cars coming into turn number 1. Pace car will pick up the field. Now Jerry Whitten is stalled as well. Pace car will slow down the field while the race officials get the situation with Dalton's car under control. Something obviously broke loose with Dalton's car, and he stalled right in the middle of the first corner. Here's an important situation. It's going to be very important for everybody. The race cars are going to move inside that marker tire over in turn number 1. This is not going to be a marker tire violation. This is an important point for the scorers. The cars are being ordered into the infield inside of the marker tire. For all of our scorers, all of our racers, that is not a marker tire violation. It is a safety move that is being made by the race officials to get the... again, we're under caution, and now the number 21 of Douthit, which becomes more likely, is most likely blown the engine and is out of the race. He dropped a lot of oil over in turn number 1 and blocked the track again. The cars are moving underneath the marker tire in turn number 1. That is not a marker tire violation. The rules regularly call for the cars to move inside of that first turn marker tire, but since they were ordered down to the inside to avoid the oil in the wrecked cars, that is not a marker tire violation. It'll still be another lap or so before that area is released to the race cars. Now, when that happens, there's going to be a dust cloud kicked up. Race fans, be aware that when the cars are released to go back into turn number 1, they're going to kick up a pretty good-sized dust cloud, and as a result, you want to be aware that that's going to happen. Again, the race cars are being ordered to the inside to avoid the track workers as they do their work. Every time, Dulcie has been clipping that marker tire just to make sure, but again, there is no marker tire violation. I repeat, there is no marker tire violation because the race cars are being ordered to the inside of that marker tire by the race officials. Now this is going to, of course, slow the pace of this race, and we, at this pace, with the most recent yellows, we probably aren't looking at a 500-lap event, but we're certainly going to have more than 400. Again, race fans over at the area of turn number 1, watch out, we're going to have a pretty good-sized dust cloud when we come back to green, being kicked up by the drivers as they run over the cement dust and absorbent material laid down to pick up the oil that poured out of Bobby Douthit's car. We're also going to stay under yellow for a couple of laps because that center north marker tire got so deranged over there by the several cars that have ripped into it and size centered on it that felt it was necessary to replace it. Those tires are bolted down, and as a result, it takes a couple of minutes to bolt a new one into place. We have several of them that are pre-positioned around the racetrack to be put back there just in case. Just about set for the restart in a couple of laps, as again our alternates are still waiting back in the pit area. By my reckoning, we've gone through the 9th alternate of Mike Nelson, and we're going to be seeing such drivers as Denny Buckler, Marvin Owens Jr., Country Brown, and Steve Ryder, and Jack Smith being placed in the race shortly as we get set for the restart this next time by. Again, the main point of action there before the number 21 of Douthit blew the motor and dropped back was that the number 1 of Dulcie got involved in that big side swipe coming out of the second corner. That damaged his car. Often takes a beating in this race, but he keeps on coming back every year as the number 35 of Robbie Loving and the number 44 Brown come through. Notice that the drivers, as they come back onto the racetrack, take pains to come through the intersection and around the start-finish line because that is necessary to complete one lap. Also moving out, Marvin Owens Jr., the 11th alternate in the number 53 car. We notice the number 35 of Loving shortcut the lap and still keeps on going. We'll come to the green flag again. We're taking an extra lap or two under caution to work the oil out of turn number 1, and that means why we're still under caution in the second minute of the second hour of this World Championship event. So with two more alternates on the track, Denny Buckler, number 99, and Marvin Owens Jr., the number 53, we storm the field out of turn number 4 and come to the green. Dulcie rolls to first place, streaks ahead on the lapped number 7 of Rodney Sizemore and the 95 of Gibson. And there's the number 4 of Bruce Tunney going to the inside. That may be a race for position between those drivers. No, I think Bruce Tunney is a couple of laps ahead of Rodney Sizemore as we're working the 151st lap of this race. And again, we're looking at a 438-lap race at this point in time. But as we come through green, I'm certain we're going to pick up a lot of laps and go even quicker and quicker as we went down from a 500-lap pace to a 438-lap pace. We're looking at probably, if we get a lot of laps on the green, something in the range of 450 laps in this World Championship event. That would be the most in 14 years of this World Championship, and the most since we had it in the previous formats, which has since been changed, when we had 470 laps. Once upon a time, when we had trouble like you just saw, we would have stopped the race under red. Now we bring the race down to caution like for a Winston Cup race or a late model race and other forms of competition. Minutes into the second hour of the 3-hour World Championship Figure 8 Endurance race. Rights number 0 stops at the crossover looking for some place to go and giving him a little slack to number 35 of Loving. Those guys really need to get together. 4 wide going into the first corner. Backing out Gibson, going through the middle. Connor on the inside. Ford passes Connor and Owens and Nelson. And then Nelson is hit by the number 53 of Owens, who almost runs into Bear at the intersection. Bear, of course, is the second place guy. Now we come to the 101. Wow, the number 1 of Rossi had to hit the brakes to keep him running into the third place number 15 of Dwayne Lee crosswise at the intersection. And Dwayne Lee bumps at the back end of Brown, almost pushes him out of the way. And now Dwayne Lee almost collides with the number 71 of Coles, almost comes down on top of the number 33 of Doug Gregg as those drivers run in a clump about 3/4 of a lap down. Trouble as the number 23 of Van Meter got hit and spun out by Buckler's 99. Coming out of the fourth turn, he gets restarted. He loses more ground. Now Garrigus Jr. stops the intersection. St. John cuts into crossover instead of Garrigus Sr. and Gregg. And Garrigus Jr. keeps on going. Now Van Meter and Nelson wait up for the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore and various other suspects. And where is your lead group? There's Dawsey in the lead, and Bear closes up, and it was Dawsey puts his nose in traffic and hits the marker tire the way he didn't want to. They're inside of the number 4 of Bruce Tunney as Buckler slows, blocking Garrigus Jr. And Foster comes in front of a group of 8 drivers cutting through the intersection. And it's a typical lap of the World Figure 8 Championship. Now here's an interesting group coming through the second corner of lap number 160, I believe. With number 1 of Dawsey in the lead, the number 94 Bear is now a length behind. They'll run 4 wide into turn number 3 with Dawsey up near the wall. Bear backs down, letting Dawsey clear traffic for along with the number 4 of Tunney. And the 94 Bear gets hung out to dry, loses 8 lengths to the leader. Make that 2 turns to the leader. Dawsey keeps on going. Dawsey was letting Kenny Rackley do the blocking for him. I wonder if there's a lesson there someplace. So Dawsey still running in tandem with the number 4 of Bruce Tunney and the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. Bear was all over him for a long time. Now finds himself dropping way back as Foster almost wrecked 6 cars in the intersection, including the cars of Bruce Tunney and Rodney Sizemore. At the crossover, Dwayne Lee holds up as Bob Brown almost spins to the intersection after he almost gets together with the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. One of the fascinating things about auto racing is how sometimes a race will take on a life of its own as if predestined. That is what we've got in the majority of this World Figure 8 Championship, where it's been a 3-car battle all the way through as far as lead lap cars are concerned, with the number 1 of Dawsey trading back and forth, seemingly running even with the number 94 of Bear, and the third place number 15 of Dwayne Lee surviving 2 hard hits, keeps on running in third place, still out there in contention if one of the leaders runs into problems, kind of playing the, as we've said, David Pearson or Cale Yarborough act, or maybe prefer the Jerry Labonte act, or even the Bob Seneca act. I should have mentioned that. Gap between first and second place on my unofficial stopwatch is 3.8 seconds between first and second place, which midway through the 7th minute of the second hour of the World Championship is essentially no lead whatsoever. But now Dawsey makes the important move of cutting clear of traffic, while Bear is still mired in traffic and almost gets nailed by Connor and Lee. and Lee is now within a quarter lap or less of being overlapped by the number 1 of Dawsey. And Lee looks at the intersection, cuts the track in front of a pack of 6 drivers. That includes the 94 Bear, the second place car. Here's Lee at one end, Bear at the other. They come at the intersection in perfect synchronization. They almost ended all of the crossover. And Dawsey almost got taken out by one car. The number 95 of Gibson almost plowed into the number 22 of Chris Green. And that's the sort of thing you have to survive lap after lap to have a chance to win the World Figure 8 Championship. Bear slowed down in the crossover to keep him running into Lanham and almost bumped the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. And in the crossover, Tunney ahead of the number 12 of St. John, just barely getting through the intersection. And now Bear forges ahead of the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. And now Deal holds up, so does Owens. There's Bear cutting between them in the crossover. Deal may have stalled the number 27. This could be trouble. Deal in the number 27. He is not moving in the crossover. He's stuck there now. He gets back underway. Goes right in front of the second place, number 94 of Bear in a chilling moment. Ford pulls off the racetrack and makes a stop. Brown at the number 44 stops as Owens cuts through the intersection in close quarters. And through all of this, the number 1 of Dawsey coming through the intersection just ahead of Owens, the number 53, holds onto the lead. It's about a quarter lap advantage now as we watch Bear almost running into his team car, the number 20 of John Connor Jr. It is now 6.1 seconds. In the immediate sense, that is a big lead. In the long term of this race, it is not very much because eventually all these drivers are facing the need to make pit stops. Those stops will probably happen in the third hour of this 1-hour race. And the pace picks up as we work through the second hour of this race, as we've run for about 6 minutes now without a yellow. And Bill Tunney Jr., Charlie Coles probably tried to cause one at the intersection. Has big problems. Something is sparking underneath Bear's car. Bear slideways in turn number 1 and 2. Something is broken underneath the second place car. Big sparks from Bear's car. He is fighting a slide. He waves to us. Something is broken in Bear's car. He comes off the track and out of the race for the time being. Now we use the stopwatch to find out how much time Bear loses or if he is able to get the car fixed. He comes off at 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 20 seconds of the race at 174 laps. So as Bear pulls off the track, that now leaves us with only, watch out, Bill Tunney Jr. has smoke coming from his car. Another potential contender is in trouble. Bill Tunney Jr. made a long extended pit stop at the rear end to fix the differential of that car. And now there's Owens coming up. We're watching to see Bear comes back onto the racetrack. Apparently it was no more than a flat tire. Bear lost 46 seconds. 46 seconds in 2 laps. Bear lost 46 seconds and 2 laps. So as Bear comes back onto the racetrack, apparently that sparking indicated that he had a flat tire of some sort. It was difficult from this angle of distance to tell which tire may have been low. Now the driver we're watching is Bill Tunney Jr. with the number 2. After losing a lot of time from an early pit stop, Tunney was now dicing with the number 12 of Mike St. John and the number 20 of Connor, the number 5 of Fenwick, and the 23 of Van Meter, and then the number 94 of Bear was fallen some distance off the pace. Tunney is showing a lot of smoke from the rear end of that car as he accelerates down the stretches here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Now Jack Dawsey Jr. is threatening from the entire field 1 lap down. He is tight to the back end of Dwayne Lee's number 15, going into the 3rd turn of his 180th lap. Now Bear ducks to the inside of Tunney, trying to stay ahead of Dawsey. As Dawsey cuts to the inside, trouble as a car has spun. Is that Bear? Yes, it was Bear that spun over in turn number 2, and also spinning out of the corner, the number 91 of Lennon. In the middle of that exchange, Dawsey goes around the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, and has now lapped the field. At lap number 181, Dawsey goes around the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, the second place driver, and now Dawsey, the defending World Figure 8 champion, has put the field one lap down, and Tunney, who got hit in the right side, has now blown up the car. A plume of smoke comes from Tunney's car as he limps off the track with what looks like a major league blow-up in the water situation. Looks like he has now overheated that car big time. Steam pours from that car like an old-style locomotive, and Tunney is out of the race. He did leave a little fluid on the racetrack, but not that much, and so he stayed under green. Three abreast traffic in turn number one among lapped cars that are jostling each other for position. And behind those drivers, the number one of Dawsey, who hit the brakes, and when Dwayne Lee, a lap down, hit the brakes to keep him running in the back end of Dawsey, he almost get hit crosswise by the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. And Rodney Sizemore gives up another lap. He gets encountered in traffic that he cannot move around. And again, Dawsey has himself a huge advantage. Now he has lapped the entire field in less than one half of this race. Not only has he lapped the field, he's now pulling away from the second place number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Third place is Bruce Tunney in the number 4, who's running pretty much all by himself in another pack. Actually, he's right behind. You got an odd circumstance where the first place cars ahead of the second place cars ahead of the third place car, and from our judgment, they are running on separate laps. Calls with the intersection forces St. John and Dawsey to slow down, but that is not enough of a disadvantage for Dawsey to lose his one-lap advantage on Dwayne Lee. But Dawsey, trying to lead these cars all the way through the intersection, is in a fight of a lifetime right now, as Dawsey, underneath Lanham's car, just watch out of the crossover. The Whitney car slows down, almost takes out Coles, the number 71Z. And so Dawsey, as Dawsey comes out of turn number 2 and looks for a chance to move into the third corner midway through the 15th minute of the second hour of this race, Dawsey gets further and further ahead. And now we see the number 4 of Bruce Tunney moving ahead of the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Now, by our reckoning, that looks like that's a pass for position one lap down. That unofficial circumstance is correct, and if Bruce Tunney, a lap down, has now passed the number 15 of Dwayne Lee for second, that means those drivers are still in great shape. Because a lap disadvantage at this juncture of the World Figure 8 Championship is not that much of a disadvantage, and that would allow Bruce Tunney to be in a position to take the lead away from Dawsey, if Dawsey would have a slow stop or any number of other unusual and wild things would happen. 1 hour and 15 minutes into the event. Dawsey running wheel-to-wheel and jostling with the number 12 of Mike St. John. Those drivers racing as if they were battling for the lead, although they are on separate laps. And Dawsey forges ahead of St. John. Dawsey coming through the intersection, heavy traffic. The number 71 of Cole slowed up to keep it running into the latest of the alternates to move on to the racetrack, Steve Reidner, and in the process almost got plastered by Dawsey, who was at full speed through the intersection. Now the crossover, Jerry Brown almost got hit at the front end by Van Meter, at the back end by John Connor Jr. Wow, what stories these guys will have to tell after the racing is over. Brown tries to do it again. He holds up at the last second. He got nailed to the back end by Charles Coles, the number 71. Brown at the intersection slowed up to keep from ramming into traffic, got plastered by the 71 of Cole. Then the number 17 of Reiner slowed up and blocked the number 33 of Doug Gray, bringing out the caution. And now Deal spins at the intersection and almost takes out the leader after the caution has come out. All of the drivers involved in that melee, the intersection, limp away. Cole's kind of checking away with what might be suspension damage to the front end of his car, and Dawsey makes a pit stop. Important point. 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 22 seconds into the race. Jack Dawsey Jr. makes a stop at the end of 195 laps. Now, Dawsey will remain in the lead as we see it. Now, if the number 4 of Bruce Tunney, the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, running in second and third place, maintained there, then we will have ourselves could have ourselves either a brand new leader. Now again, we're working on the assumption that unofficially Dwayne Lee is 1 lap down. Lee has also come off the racetrack to make a pit stop. So the only one of the leaders on the track would be the number 4 of Tunney, and also Bear, the number 94, still out there. Bear is somewhere between 2 or 3 laps down unofficially. These drivers will make up laps as the pace car leads the field around. Now we'll come to green here very shortly. Now Dawsey will be still in the pits because the pace car has come around turn number 3 and the stop sign is put up. And so as we understand it, Bruce Tunney in the number 4 will now come into the lead as we see Wright making a stop. So Bruce Tunney, as we told you, if you're within a lap of the lead, you're in great shape. And there's Bruce Tunney coming out of the 4th corner in the number 4 as we come to lap number 196 completed. That would be the number 4 of Bruce Tunney in first place. Dawsey officially in second place, the number 1. Dwayne Lee in the number 15, run officially in third. Those drivers made pit stops simultaneously. Those drivers are getting set for the restart this next time by. At the end of lap number 197, Bruce Tunney becoming the 4th leader of this race under caution as the top 2 drivers make pit stops and Bruce Tunney comes to the lead. Here's Dawsey staging back at the pit gate and coming back onto the racetrack. And this time, it's Dawsey who has to wait for the field to come on through, looking for room and not finding any. Now Dawsey has to get on the throttle hard to make sure he doesn't go a lap down to the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. Now here's Dwayne Lee coming onto the racetrack. We notice that Rick Fenwick also made a pit stop, as is Jerry Brown. Now there's Dawsey in charge, trying to pull ahead of number 4, Bruce Tunney. This is going to be interesting to see of these drivers, which one has the potential of being the absolute fastest. Bruce Tunney in pursuit of Fenwick, who come back onto the racetrack after making a pit stop, also stopping the number 72, McMurtry, comes to the intersection just ahead of the number 00 of Garrigus, and almost collecting the number 1 of Dawsey as the number 4 of Tunney, and the number 5 of Fenwick almost had a confrontation with the number 95 of Gibson. And here comes the number 23 of Eddie Van Meter back onto the racetrack. No sign yet of the number 2 team of Bill Tunney Jr. as that car apparently is out with a major engine malfunction. And Charles Cosgrove back on the racetrack after plowing into Jerry Brown's car. And the number 4 of Tunney is losing ground to Dawsey's number 1. Watch out at the intersection, finally out full right. The number 94 Bear almost got plowed by the number 22 of Green as he was racing with Ford and Mike St. John and several dozen others. Now the intersection stopped. The number 17 of Reiner trying to roll through here as Dwayne Lee and Rackley and everybody else almost gets into an interesting deal with bumping into others and crashing and all those other good things. Watch out at the crossover, the number 4 of Bruce Tunney almost got plowed by Jerry Witten's number 2. And there are at least 2 slowed or stopped cars in the intersection, 3 stopped cars in the intersection, supposedly out of the racing line as the leaders come plowing on through. Now there are 2 or 3 stopped cars in the crossover. Here comes Dawsey. He gets through safely. Here's Tunney looking for room around those stopped cars. They keep on rolling. Nelson's trying to go in one direction. Garrigus Sr. in another. Those guys are tied up all over each other with no place to go, trying to pick their way through the crossover. And it's really getting hairy at the intersection. One important point, the number 4, Bruce Tunney, is definitely, no doubt about it, losing ground to the number 1 of Dawsey, has been pulling away from the number 4 of Tunney since we came to this restart at now with 1 hour and 20 minutes and 58 seconds gone in this 3-hour World Championship Figure 8 endurance race. Tunney in the number 4 holds on to the lead unofficially. Bear back to second place in the number 94 and third place to Dawsey in the number 1. That would probably drop Dwayne Lee in the number 15 car back to 4th place. Now remember, Bear, when he made his pit stop, when he had something go wrong with that car, which we'll anticipate was a flat tire, lost 2 laps and has managed to make one or maybe both of them up. We'll wait for our scores to give us the indication here at about the 200 lap mark of this race. As Dan Wright comes back onto the racetrack, Bruce Tunney takes a evasive loop to get around Ford and Country Brown. At the crossover, number 33 of Doug Gregg avoids a quick confrontation and keeps on going rather smartly. Across the intersection collide with the number 17 of Ryder. He took a hit in the left side behind the front wheel, and now there's the number 4 of Bruce Tunney trying to run him down as Dawsey tried to come to the intersection and had a confrontation with Ryder and keeps on going, this time missing Ryder. And that peeled off most of the bodywork on the right rear of that car behind the right rear, by the left rear wheel, where he got a hit in the area ahead of the left rear wheel about 80 laps earlier. Kim Gibson of the number 95 got into trouble going into turn number 1. Makes a brave move of putting her car in reverse, trying to restage and roll. Now she is backing her car into traffic. Kim Gibson is making a weird move. Maybe the car won't go forward and will come down to yellow as a result. Kim Gibson in the number 95 still has her car in reverse. Her car is almost running into Kim Gibson as she tries to back the car up. Apparently it just won't go into forward gear, I would guess. Now she gets it going forward for an instant and then it stops. Now she is going backwards for an instant and it stops. We're nearing the halfway mark of this race as far as time is concerned. And again, we're looking at about a 450 lap race. Also being pushed off the track, Denny Buckler, the number 99. It looks as if Gibson's going to need a rear end tow in that number 95 to come off the track. The driver that benefits from this yellow, of course, is Jack Dawsey Jr. Dawsey, who had been in danger of being overlapped in that last sequence at the very end by the number 4 Bruce Tunney. Remember how Dawsey got hit in the intersection with the number 17 of Reidner and tore up the left rear of that car. Now, Dawsey finds himself in a condition where he is going to be able to get at the tail end of the pack and try to catch up to everybody else. Here's your unofficial top 9 from World Championship Timing and Scoring. Leader, number 4, Bruce Tunney. In second place, the number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr. Third place, the number 94 of Bear. Fourth place, the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Fifth place, the number 12 of Mike St. John. Sixth place, the number 5 of Rich Fenwick. Seventh place, the number 33 of Doug Gregg. Eighth place, the number 20 of John Connor Jr. Ninth place, the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. And so it gets into which will be a typically wild speedrome restart that'll see cars often stopped at the intersection as the number 4 Bruce Tunney comes back into first place. Now, trouble, what car is leaking on the racetrack? It looked like it was the number 41 of Foster that dropped something down there, but we'll keep on rolling. And there's the number 4 of Bruce Tunney jousting with the number 12 of Mike St. John and the number 5 of Rich Fenwick with the 20 of Connor, the number 23 of Van Meter. There's a possibility that none of the drivers are running on the same lap. But what we're watching is Dawsey, the number 1, who's trying to close back on Tunney to get back up to a leading position. halfway mark of this race coming out of turn number 4 of lap number 220. As Tony holds on to the advantage, we watch in the back. Dawson is still trying to come through cars, having no luck whatsoever. As the number 35, watch out, Robbie Loving is not moving. He's in a dangerous position. He's almost got hit several times. Robbie Loving's number 35 is stopped. He got hit at the back by Dan Wright. Turned in on number 72 of Curtis McMurtry. Now Wright's number 0 car is stopped with damage, and we come down to 9. Robbie Loving's number 35 was stopped at the intersection. It would not run. Everybody avoided him except Dan Wright and the number 0, who plowed into the back end of Loving's car. And then in turn, they got clipped by the number 72 of Curtis McMurtry. McMurtry makes a pit stop. We'll check out the other 2 drivers under caution. That happens just short of the halfway mark of this race. We're very short to the halfway mark of this race, and we've had 4 leaders in this World Figure 8 Championship. Had the number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr., the 15 of Twain Lee, the number 94 of Fred Bear, and most recently the number 4 of Bruce Tenney. 4 leaders in the first 90 minutes and 222 laps of this race. As Dan Wright is okay, he is trying to get that car off the track as the wrecker picks it up after it got nailed in the front end, after sacrificing itself to the back end of the number 35, the Mike Hughes owned car. But notice that Fred Bear made a quick stop in the number 94, now comes back to the racetrack, and now joining yet another alternate, another one of the Kentuckiana drivers in the number 05, Wayne Newkirk. He was listed as the 15th alternate of this race. Now we're reaching the halfway mark of this race, and we are exactly on a 248 lap pace, or rather 448 lap pace, nearly 450 lap pace, as we are now just a couple of seconds away from the halfway mark, which means that we might get the wonderful formality of cross flags from our starter as Curtis McMurtry comes back to the racetrack after repairs to the left side of his car after colliding with the number 0 of Wright, just past the halfway mark of this race. And we get set for the restart here, probably in a lap or so. Again, our unofficial reckoning looks this way. Leader, the number 4 of Bruce Tenney. Second place, the number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr. Third place would have been 94 Bear. Fourth place, 15 Lee. Fifth place, the number 12 of Mike St. John. Sixth place, the number 5 of Rich Fenwick, as we come to the end of the 31st minute of the second hour of this race. There's Fenwick Tenney, along with the number 12 of Mike St. John and the number 20 of Connor, and there in the middle of the pack is the number 1 of Dawson. Fenwick got around Tunney on the restart, and now St. John is trying to do the same thing, and will get the job done coming out of turn number 4 of lap number 227. And now Tunney is in danger of losing some ground to the number 20 of John Connor Jr., and that happens. We also noticed the number 26 of Morrison was involved in a crossover crash about an hour ago, has come back onto the racetrack and is moving through the intersection as if nothing had happened a little earlier. And now Tunney has been passed by the number 23 of Van Meter. You wonder if this is starting to show either something is soft on Tunney's car, or if he would rather lay back and let everybody else battle for position. In the meantime, while Bruce Tunney finds himself falling back, Dawsey in the number 1 is not necessarily moving up. He is still mired in the middle of a pack of drivers that's jostling and battling each other 2 and 3 abreast, and he in fact is caught right behind the number 94 of Fred Bear Jr. as Bear has fallen out of the top 3 as a result of his most recent pit stop, and third place is shown as the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Jack Smith, another alternate, is now onto the racetrack in the number 24, moving through the intersection as the leaders come charging through in both directions at full speed. And as Bruce Tunney comes to the intersection, Charles Coles almost says hello to the number 15 of Dwayne Lee with his front bumper, and the number 24 of Smith is going to be meandering around the intersection looking for a place to go, and I don't think he's finished the lap yet. And now Trotter, the number 20 of Connor, gets hit and spun out by the number 05 car, being driven by Wayne Newkirk. Those drivers trying to get disengaged and restart. We'll hold on for a moment to see if those guys can roll again. We do no caution. We stay under green. And now we see the number 77 of Kevin Ford trying to pull off the racetrack, actually colliding with the number 91 of Butch Lanham, as now the number 15 of Dwayne Lee in the spin over on the inside of turn number 3. Lee's car stalls for him, and now he gets restarted, as still Ford is trying to get off the track of the number 77. Lee gets restarted, and he may have fallen back even further, as the number 4 of Bruce Tunney moves through into turn number 1. He's being challenged by Mike St. John, who moves around Tunney out of turn number 4. Again, Tunney does not have the world's strongest car on this restart, and is still out there trying to make laps, but does not look like the world beater he was a little earlier. Now we see the number 37 of Art Smith Jr., another one of our alternates, the 15th alternate, moving back onto the racetrack. And where is the leader? Number 4, Bruce Tunney. He's out there in the middle of a pack, and the number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr. is approaching. We'll have to double check with our scores to find out if Dawsey is in the same lap with Bruce Tunney. If that's the case, this could quickly develop into a fight for the lead. But at the same time, Bruce Tunney has moved around the number 94 of Bear, and the number 1 of Dawsey, the 33 of Greg, and the number 23 of Van Meter almost ran into the side of the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. At the crossover, watch out, Connor, in a tiny gap between the number 23 of Van Meter and the number 1 of Dawsey, and I don't know how he managed to get through there. He'll try it again. Dawsey collides with number 17 of Ryder, sending him in a wild spin through the intersection and forcing the number 33 of Doug Gregg to go wide and into the first corner underneath the marker tire. That'll be a violation, clearly, but at least Doug Gregg managed not to violate his life. So Dawsey throwing all caution to the winds in an attempt to catch up to the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. Maybe thinking that he and Tunney were on the same lap, and he almost collided with both the number 20 of Connor and the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore coming through the intersection as he makes a mad dash to try to catch up to the number 4 of, and now he's separated from that car by a whole bunch of gap at the Now Dawsey on the tail end of Tunney's number 4. Again, we're trying to double check and get an indication if they are running on the same lap. As they come out of the 4th corner to make contact as they run to the first turn of the leader's 242nd lap. There's Dawsey right behind Tunney coming out of turn number 2 as they go above Chris Green's number 22. Clear crossover that time. Coming out of turn number 4, we watch as Tunney moves around Garrigus Sr. and Dawsey runs through there as Tunney almost bumps into the back end of Jerry Brown's car. We watch as the 32 of Doug Gregg almost gets caught out of the crossover by St. John and another machine, that'd be the number 33 of Doug Gregg. Now there's Dawsey getting Tunney caught in traffic, sailing above him in turn number 3 and 4 of the leader's 423rd lap. There's Dawsey moving around Tunney and moving ahead of him as we work to the 37th minute of this race. as Jerry Lee Ward with the number 29, the 17th alternate, moves onto the racetrack and moves through the intersection. The scoring still shows that the number 4 of Tunney is in the lead, so Dawsey must have been one lap down and basically got his lap back. That is up. Dawsey now goes on the lead lap. Our scores tell us that that pass was for Dawsey to unlap himself. He is now the second driver on the lead lap, one lap down, as the number 71 of Frost, after that collision, comes back onto the racetrack and looks good in the process. At the crossover, 3 cars almost get together. Tunney almost got nailed by Bear. Return almost ran into the number 71 of Charles Cole. Another close encounter at the crossover of the Indianapolis Speedrome. And as we saw, Dawsey did the intersection looking for someplace to go. 6 cars, the crossover, one time he manages to juke right into the left and get through that mess. And Dawsey is now pulling away for the number 4 of Tunney. My stopwatch, as Tunney has a close encounter at the intersection, shows that Dawsey is now 2.2 seconds ahead of Tunney, which means he's probably about 17 seconds behind getting back into the lead. So Dawsey, even though he's crashed about 2 or 3 times so far, would appear to have the fastest car on the racetrack. Going into the second corner of the leader's 249th lap, it's 3.4 seconds between Tunney to the last driver on the lead lap, the number 1 of Dawsey. As Dawsey comes to the intersection just ahead of Bear, and he comes to the intersection just ahead of Ryder. Tunney comes through all by himself. Then Cole's almost got nailed by Deal and Connor. And then to the intersection, it's again Dawsey and Bear. This could be an important point. Now, if you're exactly a half lap offset from somebody in figure-eight racing and into the intersection, Dawsey and Bear have almost nailed each other a couple of times. Dawsey would prefer to be coming through the crossover ahead of Bear. And now we notice that Dawsey is coming through turns number 1 and 2, just ahead of the number 15 of Dwayne Lee as they move past the number 33 of Doug Gray. Through all of this meandering and madness of the intersection, Dawsey, who's starting to shed body parts, is now 3 seconds ahead of Tunney. And there's Dawsey and Dwayne Lee doing battle as Dawsey moves around Dwayne Lee, coming through turn number 2 of the leader's lap, number 251, his 250th lap. So Dawsey continues to try to make ground on the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. Heavy traffic ahead for Dawsey. Tunney at a more or less clear intersection. 3.7 seconds between those drivers as Bear nearly plastered the number 53 of Marvin Owens Jr. At the crossover, several stopped cars there for a moment. Go through the intersection just ahead of Ryder and the number 91 of Lanham. Cars 2 past the 3 rest of the intersection almost stops. And Chris Green almost got plastered by the number 5 of Rich Fenwick. 4.3 seconds is the advantage so far that Dawsey has over Tunney in an attempt to get back into the lead. And Dawsey is making his inroads so far in traffic, while Bruce Tunney finds himself more or less clear of that traffic this time, as we finish the 40th minute of the second hour of this World Figure-8 Championship. And the story is, can Jack Dawsey Jr., with a car that's got a lot of cosmetic damage, but mechanically is in good shape, continue his charge to get back on the lead, as he is now pulled 6.7 seconds ahead of the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. This, if it works out, could be one of the remarkable comebacks in racing. If Dawsey, under clear green flag racing, can make up a lap on Bruce Tunney and take the lead without having any sort of assist from a caution. And so far, Dawsey is doing it. Number 4, Tunney got a bit of assist from the Dawsey got an assist from Bear, because Bear collided with the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. That slows Bruce down a little more. And now it's outside trouble. It's number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Speed is coming through the intersection. Looked like that was an unforced error, and he tried to avoid trouble, but he keeps on going. Now Dwayne Lee races with the number 94 Bear and the number... Watch out, Dwayne Lee took a hit from Garrigus, and banged to the number 94 Bear. Garrigus and the number 00 and the number 24 Smith, who caused the collision with almost foot Bear's car, are rounding together over in turn number 2. They can disengage. There will be no cautions and no additional assistance for the number 1 of Dawsey, who's still trying to get back the lead from the number 4 of Tunney. working midway through the 42nd. Watch out of the crossover as Tunney and Dawsey nearly collide. Now we're going to give you the gap between first and second place on the unofficial stopwatch up here in the tower. Watch out as Brown almost takes out the leaders and pieces of bodywork go flying. 9.8 seconds between first and second place. Bear got ahead of the number 4, Bruce Tunney, to get one of his laps back. And as our indication, the Bear is now only one lap down. The gap between first and second place is now 7.8 seconds. Dawsey made up 2 seconds in about 2 laps. Now your top 3 drivers, according to our scores: the number 4 of Bruce Tunney, the number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr. in the 3rd place car on the lead lap. We're coming down to caution. We are coming down to caution. Yellow is being displayed as we glance for the specific reason. It may be a piece of bodywork that flew off of one of the cars that's over in turn number 3 that may be causing the caution. And Dawsey almost got taken out by the pace car. So there's a big piece of bodywork, at least 2 pieces of bodywork over the area of turn number 3. As a result, we come down to caution. A lot of guys make pit stops. Will we see number 4, Bruce Tunney, be among those that go into the pits? Answer is yes. Tunney has made his stop. And I think Dawsey has gone into the pits as well. So now Dawsey has stayed out, but now the lead will go to Dawsey in the number 1 as Bruce Tunney has made his stop. Now Bruce Tunney needs to make an exceptionally fast pit stop to have a chance not to go a lap down. But here we are back to that battle that we've already seen between the number 1 of Dawsey and the 94 of Bear as Tunney surrenders the lead on a pit stop at the 43-minute mark of the 2nd hour of this race, giving the lead back to the number 1 of Dawsey, 2nd place to the number 94 of Bear, and 3rd place to the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. As there's that big piece of bodywork carefully deposited over the wall. The second larger piece of bodywork almost deposited over the wall, and the track worker almost deposited himself over the wall. We'll come over to lap number 285 underway right now. Bruce Tunney's not making the world's fastest pit stop. The car is still in the pits, and he'll probably lose a couple of laps in the process. And as we have to make a hat dance out there, one of the track crews had his hat fall off, which is the process of flying across the racetrack and getting squashed. Actually, you can see it. It's out in the middle of the north lobe of the intersection, and it's too late to get it now. You'll have to buy yourself another hat after the race, and there will be hats and other World Championship figure eight souvenirs on sale right now and after the race is concluded. Well, you notice the number 12 of Mike St. John and the number 5 of Rich Fenwick were waved around the pace car. That was deliberate. Since Dawsey is now the leader, there's Mike St. John waving to the crowd. He thinks he's got a chance to get more laps back, as we have not yet seen Bruce Tunney's car staged for the restart. Tunney will have lost 4 or 5 laps in the process, and we see Doug Gregg coming back getting ready for a restart. There's Garrigus coming through the pits getting ready for his restart, and just now does Tunney come down off the jacks and come out onto the racetrack. He will have lost 3 or 4 laps in the process. And Tunney cuts through the intersection, and Garrigus kind of holds up. And now Garrigus will be caught in the intersections. The leaders come out of turn number 4, and we roll to the green flag. And toss over as well. He'll find a tiny gap between the number 77 of Ford and the number 22 of Green, as Dawsey is back in the lead for the 2nd or 3rd or 4th time in the race. So Dawsey runs clean. He'll have to watch out for crossover traffic like Mike St. John, as he has the number 23 of Van Meter right behind him. Second place, still on the lead lap, is the number 94 of Bear. Bear is trying to chase down Dawsey. Dawsey in heavy traffic cuts through the intersection. Now the Wayne Newkirk number 05 car is stopped, and he almost got hit by the number 29 of Ward, and somehow keeps on going. So now we use the stopwatch to gauge the gap between Dawsey's number 1 and the number 94 of Bear as a new alternate. Ronnie Rignan comes onto the racetrack. Dawsey had to watch out for Green, almost got punted to the back end by the number 23 of Van Meter, who held up drivers 4 wide as Ward slowed to the intersection, almost got hit in the back by guess who? Charlie Coles, who I think has the record for that sort of deal. At the intersection, Rackley almost got hit by Connor and Ford. And now as Dawsey tiptoes through the intersection, there's Bear trying to go through as well. Somewhere between 8 or 10 seconds is the gap between first and Dawsey almost runs into Brown. He did hit Brown. He hit Brown in the right rear and keeps on going. Left rear, I should say. Dawsey hit Brown. Now let's see if that car got any damage from that low-speed collision with Brown. That's Dawsey's 3rd crash in the race so far. That's very much the situation he had last year. 6.5 seconds between first and second place. Dawsey comes to the 4th corner. Country Brown's machine is missing a bodywork on the left side, but that's not going to slow him down. He doesn't know the meaning of the word quit or a whole bunch of other words either. Despite the crash, the gap between first and second place increases from 6.5 to 7.1 seconds. Brown's out of the race for the moment after taking the hit. Dawsey just keeps on going. Bear almost runs at the back end of Brown's slow-moving car. Cuts into turn number 1, gap between first and second place, 6.1 seconds. Dawson comes across the stripe and work. Watch out of the crossover. The 12 of St. John to the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore, among others, almost all welded each other together. And there's the number 91 of Bush Lanham almost running with the number 17. Ryder's in trouble. Ryder is crossways the entire field. Ryder is running slow with the number 17. He gets restarted, and it was almost the end for Ryder. Dawsey waits up at the intersection for several stopped cars, including Widener and Ford. Now watch out, trouble is the number 20 of Connor and the number 94 Bear. The team cars take each other out in turn number 4. Major event in this race as Bear gets restarted after his teammate took him out in turn number 4. And that will now make a huge advantage for Dawsey. 17 seconds between first and second place, according to my stopwatch, as Dawsey is once again close to putting the field lap down. Now Bear almost gets into the number 05 of Newkirk, who went through the intersection at a walking pace. And Bear again struggling just to stay on the lead lap. A spin by the number 38 of Rackley. He's crossways in turn number 1. Out of the way far enough that everybody else should be able to avoid him, I think. But the Rackley's just waiting for traffic to clear so he doesn't have to throw the car into reverse. As for Bear, the stopwatch is still waiting for Bear to come around turn number 4 and across the line to find out how far back he is of the leader as he races with Tunney. Ward's number 29 may have stalled. It's 14.8 seconds. Now Ward gets going again. Foster in number 41, Rigdon the number 70 are kind of slowed down and stopped as we wait for those drivers to get out of each other's way. Foster first, Rigdon second. No, Foster goes through. Rigdon hasn't done it. Yellow comes out for several cars that have stopped. Yellow comes out, I think, for Curtis McMurtry, the number 72. Yep, that's the case. McMurtry, 72, already involved in one collision, stalled. And as a result, he'll get a push back into the pits and will stay under yellow for a moment. I wonder what Bear is going to say to Connor. Let's first... Yeah, Bear's made a pit stop. No, Bear's not made a pit stop. Bear, who turned over his second car to Connor, found himself colliding with Connor, almost getting wrecked out of the race over in turn number 4. After Bear and Connor collided, Bear say, "You should have got down my way, it's my car." The caution will stave Bear from going a lap down because he was close to having that happen because he was better part of 15 seconds back by our stopwatch at the time that caution was displayed. We're almost two-thirds of the way through this contest. And again, we're looking at a well over 400 lap pace, one of the largest number of laps we've had in this race under its new format. So again, as we're midway through the 53rd minute of the second hour of the World Figure 8 Championship, it's the number 1 of Dawsey in the lead, 94 Bear in second, and the number 15 of Dwayne Lee is in third. Lee's a lap or so down. Dawsey in 1 and 94 Bear are the only drivers on the lead lap. Bear is in the final third of the field as we get set for the restart. Dawsey on the point. Pace car lights are out. Pace car pulls to the staging position at the west end of the racetrack. Dawsey, the number 1, and the number 23 of Van Meter take it easy until the corner. Then Dawsey pulls into the lead and storms into the first corner. Van Meter stays with him as Dawsey bounces off the marker tire. That's a way to damage your car. But Dawsey's already damaged the car, so what he's going to do is he's already banged up the bodywork on both sides. 72 McMurtry, after strolling on the racetrack, pulls back onto the track and pulls a lap down. As for Bear, the number 94, he started in the final third of the field, is now in a second pack of cars as Connor and number 72 McMurtry and Country Brown nearly have an interesting confrontation coming out of the fourth corner. How much is the lead? We'll use the stopwatch again to gauge the gap between first and second place. Bear still heavily mired in that traffic coming into the first corner, and the gap is 8.7 seconds. Let's see if that increases or decreases as we come through turn number 4 with Dawsey looking for room at the intersection. Almost does not find it. 2 stopped cars there. One of them is Frost. The other one is Brown. That's Steve Brown. And there's the number 94 Bear coming through the intersection after it clears up. Gap between first and second place, 8.7 seconds regardless. Now what's the number 22 of Chris Green doing? Green, the number 22, is going the wrong way at the exit of turn number 2. He's facing against traffic, trying to figure out where he's going. Now he gets going again, and thank you very much, Chris Green. Now he's going more or less the right place as the leader comes on through. And there's the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Mark it, very important. Dwayne Lee, the number 15, passes the number 1 of Dawsey. We'll have to check with race officials to see if he has gotten his lap back and has moved back on the lead lap. At the crossover, let's watch for the number 94. Bear is still the better part of a half lap back, and the gap is about 8.5 seconds. Wayne Newkirk's number 0. Cross team of Lee, who's just ahead. Watch out, the crossing, 71 miles. Cause got Hamilton on number 24, 2 damaged car, and there's still machines. Connors running into the machines. Frost, rather, Coles was headed northbound. Southbound was Connor. Those cars got disengaged, but not fast enough before we came down to yellow. Coles, number 71C, continues to roll despite taking the hit in the left side. Connor's hit damaged his right front wheel and suspension, and so he will go off the track for repairs. And again, 1 hour and 56 minutes completed in this race. midway through the 57th minute of the second hour of this race. Bruce Tunney, the number 4, in a position where either he is going to lose ground to Dawsey or is maybe in a position where he could take some laps back from Dawsey. And the number 94 of Bear, who had been mired in the second third of the field, is still mired in the second third of this field. But now he tries to pick up the pace as the leaders start to pack up through turns number 3 and 4. And he's racing very hard as we come to the green on the restart in the 58th minute of the race. The number 5 of Fenwick almost sideswiped the number 1 of Dawsey as the gap between first and second place down to 3.5 seconds as a result of the caution. Important that Tunney has moved ahead of Dawsey's number 1. And the number 94 Bears closed down to 4.1 seconds. 2 hours into this race as Newkirk loses yet another lap. We watch as the number 94 of Bear charges into the third corner, and we watch as the rest of the field charges through as Dawsey had to go wide to avoid Jerry Whitten. Gap between first and second place, 4.8 seconds. Bear in traffic, losing ground. Dawsey in the lead, picking up ground, staying ahead of Dawsey, but picking up a lap in the process as Country Brown goes someplace where I never thought you could go on this racetrack. He's the number 1 of Dawsey. So you've got an interesting trio coming out of turn number 2. First, the number 4, Bruce Tunney, who's someplace in the top 5. Then the leading number 1 of Dawsey. Then the laps down, number 5 of Rich Fenwick. Those drivers come through the intersection, almost collide with the Wayne Newkirk car yet again. And there's the number 94, Fred Bear, trying to take advantage of all of this. 3.7 seconds back. And at the intersection of clump of about a dozen cars looking for some place to go. 4 of those cars all but motionless as they kept leaders cut in between them. And Bear still trying to make up some ground. Even though Bear has been trying to take advantage of Dawsey's problems, Dawsey still has a 4-second lead as we are near the 2/3 mark of this race, past 301 laps, working the 302nd lap. Now here's Curtis Unruh in the, watch out, Dawsey slowed down, almost got hit by the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. That cuts the gap down to 2.8 seconds. The black 27X of Curtis Unruh, the 19th alternate, is now onto the racetrack. And Bear's still in heavy traffic, trying to move up. Dawsey is now clear of traffic, but notice that when Dawsey had that confrontation at the intersection, he slowed down, and Bruce Tunney got way, way ahead of him. And Bruce Tunney had to watch out for the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Now what's the gap between first and second place? It is down to 2.8 seconds. It is back to 4.4. That may answer a question. Can Bear catch up with Dawsey in a straight fight? The answer looks like it might be no. And as the clock continues to tick on inexorably, we are reaching an important milestone. The 2/3 mark of this race has now been set. We are 2 hours into the World Championship 3-hour endurance race, and we are on a 450-lap pace. Dawsey coming out of the final corner. Watch us close the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Finishes lap number 305. Bear runs into the back end of Lanham coming through the intersection, 5.5 seconds back. Brown's number 44 stopped at the intersection. He gets restarted, meandering through just out of Rodney Sizemore, checks up and gets out of the way of Bruce Tunney, who runs in front of Jack Dawsey Jr., but cuts through the intersection as Bear comes to the crossover, looking for racing room, and finds it as he jinks to the right. 4.9 seconds ahead. So here's your top 10 drivers top 4 drivers at 300 laps. An important point that the number 1 of Dawsey and the number 94 of Bear are the only drivers on the lead laps. In third place, the 15 of Dwayne Lee, 1 lap down. Fourth place is the number 4 of Bruce Tunney, also 1 lap down. And there's a big gap between those drivers. In fact, Bruce Tunney in the number 4, who's running just ahead of Dawsey, mired in some traffic, is in danger of going 2 laps down. Dawsey hit the first turn marker tire hard and almost hit his track. Let's see if he managed at that time. He's been hitting that first turn marker tire several times with reckless abandon. I don't even know what a tear up a brand new Ron Thomason car that way by hitting a marker tire, but he clouded that first turn marker tire extremely hard. That lets Bear close in. Gap down to 2.2 seconds. That might be a turning point in this race. Dawsey's still able to run faster than the slower traffic, but in hitting that marker tire, he may have hurt himself, and now Bear closes up in the number 94. Dawsey's car kind of sails high through turns number 1 and 2, still fights to stay ahead of Bear, but it's now back to 1.9 seconds. But now Dawsey is mired in traffic, and Bear is clear of that traffic as he worked to the 3rd minute of the final hour of the World Figure 8 Championship. Lots of traffic ahead. Bear down to 1.3 seconds as he tries to close in with heavy traffic ahead of Dawsey and a slower car or two between him and the number 94 Bear. But Bear closes dramatically in turn number 3. Gap was down to less than 1 second coming out of the 4th corner. Bear now had to hold up for some of the traffic, but Dawsey is still in the middle of that traffic as he's drivers running way wide. Number 33, Greg, nearly crashed ahead of Dawsey. Dawsey forced to go 3 wide. Now he changes his mind. Cuts to the inside to try to go underneath drivers as we work the 314th lap of this race. And Bear is still a short distance back. They run 4 wide into the first corner, and Dawsey cuts through that traffic. 9/10 of a second back as we now see Bruce Cooper is in the race in the number 94X. Through the intersection, Bear almost into the number 7R of Rodney Sizemore. And Bear now bounces off the number 91 of Lanham. In pursuit of Dawsey into the intersection. Dwayne Lee cuts the leader some slack. Bear now on Dawsey's tail in turn number 2 of lap number 316. He would fight for the lead. Dawsey made running over that marker tire. Now Bear catches Dawsey in traffic. They go 3 wide above the number 27 of Deal. Now Bear's got caught Dawsey Myers. Bear down to the inside of Dawsey. He takes the lead in turn number 1 of lap number 316. 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 22 seconds into this race. Bear has got the lead from Dawsey and starts to pull away. And again, things may have started to go wrong for Dawsey when he hit the first turn marker tire hard and almost hit the car. Now Bear's in a massive jam. He's in full of fresh traffic coming out of turn number 2, and somehow he survives. He makes a brave move. He almost gets put to the wall in turn number 3. Gets hooked together with Steve Clark. Dawsey hits marker tire again. Bear storms away. Watches out for Dwayne Lee in the intersection. And Rodney Sizemore tightening gap between Brown and the number 1 of Dawsey somehow keeps on going. Bear with the lead. Heavy crossover traffic again. Down front with the number 84 Darius Jr. and the number 27 of Neal. Those guys have stuffed each other over in turn number 2. Garrigus Jr. tries to get out of the way. Neal is waving as if he has damaged his car. Now there's Brown hitting and spinning out the number 93 of Nelson and crashing behind those drivers. The number 71 of Cruz and the number 83 of Country Brown. 2 separate incidents. The first one brought out the yellow flag. As the wrecker goes out to pick up Eddie Deal's number 27. Dawsey makes a pit stop. It begins to look more and more as if the turning point of the race was when Dawsey hit the marker tire going into turn number 1. That may have damaged something in the right side suspension and slowed it down to the point that Bear was able to pass him and take the lead. Important point, Dawsey stopped, will outlap the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. And Tunney will most likely go back into second place. Will outlap both drivers? We'll have to double check. So Bruce Tunney Dwayne Lee, we understand, is 2 laps down to the number 15, but it looks as if the number 4, Bruce Tunney, may come to second place. We'll have to double check that, except it looks as if Bruce Tunney is. Bruce Tunney made a pit stop too. No, he's still on the racetrack. Now we understand that Bruce Tunney is now in second place, 1 lap down. It's our indication that Bruce Tunney is in second place, 1 lap down. Dawsey's still running in third place, but the pit stop is not concluded for him, and he's already lost a lap or 2. So Fred Bear may find himself in the driver's seat as the wreckers move out. Because Rigdon's number 70 has to be towed off one side. And now the number 1 of Dawsey comes back onto the racetrack. We got to the gate just before the stop sign came out. Dawsey clearly got to the gate just before the race car crossed the line, so the stop sign had not been displayed. But Dawsey will have lost a lap or so. Let's see if that car has been repaired, and if he can once again make up a lap under green to get back to the front of the field. He's got to pass Bear, by my indication, at least twice. He's got to pass him once to get back to the lead lap and another time for position. We'll have to double check with our scores to make sure that's the case, but it is my unofficial assumption that Dawsey, the number 1, is at least 1 lap down as a result of the stop. Well, what do you know, I was correct about the scoring monitor too, the electricity. And ladies and gentlemen, repairing the scoring monitor is some kid in a white shirt. Kid in the white shirt, the power went out. You got to fix it again. Pace car lights are on, but comes a restart. 8.5 minutes into the final hour of this race. They're in the lead of the number 94. And our scores tell us he's got a lot of money. Unofficially in third place, you have the number 1 of Dawsey as we come to the restart. Now let's find out how quickly Dawsey might be able to cut through the gap, or cut through the pack and get back to the lead lap. It's 6.5 seconds between first and second. At the crossover, number 94 on a Cooper got hit, and there the number 44 car got spun, hit by the number 17 of Reiner, and everybody keeps going up. Somebody's lost the wheel. Somebody's had a wheel come up down and bring out the yellow. I'm not sure which car lost the wheel. It may be the number whatever car it was that came off the track, lost the wheel in the collision, sheared it off completely, pulled, and it's kind of an odd circumstance because it looks like it pulled the bolt holes completely out, and I'm not sure, you may have a brake on the other side there, brake discus, so forth, and so again, whip them down to caution and pick up the wheel and give it back to the guy that lost it free of charge. So Fred Bear continues to have the lead here as of 325 laps unofficially. Second place, the number 4 Bruce Tunney. Third place, the number 1 of Dawsey. Fourth place, 15, Dwayne Lee. Fifth place, the number 5 Fenwick. Sixth place, in the number 12, you've got Mike St. John. Then seventh place is the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. Eighth place, the number 33 of Doug Gregg unofficially, and that's what we've got so far. As far as the lap relationship between the drivers, the 94 Bear has a 1-lap lead over the number 4 of Bruce Tunney, a 2-lap lead over the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, a 4-lap lead over the number 5 of Fenwick, and he'll try to make up one of those laps this next time by. And then you've got the number 12 St. John, 7 laps down, and unofficially 9 laps down, the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. as Mark Daly Jr. brings the number 41 car onto the racetrack. Daly, the 27th alternate in this race. Again, the number 94 Bear has the advantage. Dawsey, the number 1, was able to pass a few cars, as now we've got another one who's coming off the racetrack. Almost collisions between the number 83 Brown and the number 22 of Green. And again, we've got pretty much the same number of cars at the start of the race as we have right now, as Country Brown will bring his machine off the track. Again, as one car gets knocked out, we put another car in to take its place. And we've gone through about half of our alternates list, as coming out of turn number 4, Bear holds onto the lead as we come to the restart. Now let's watch and find out how far back you've got the number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr. on this restart. It's 4.9 seconds on the immediate restart, as of course Dawsey is mired in traffic, while Bear is out in front and pulling away. That traffic situation, of course, will change as we start to move through the intersection and things start to get, shall we say, unusual, as Dawsey already has his own unusual encounter coming through the intersection. 5.5 seconds between first and second place. Dawsey hits another marker tire. The front end purposes a bit. I wonder if he might have damaged a shock or something like that during the race, and the car's bouncing around a little more than it used to. We'll find out here shortly as Dawsey gets it sideways coming across the stripe. 6.6 seconds. Dawsey is losing ground in a hurry. As Bear comes through the intersection, free of traffic, Dawsey sees guys running three abreast of him, some of them getting spun out like the number 84 of Gary, who got hit by the number 71 of Frost. And it's still a heavy gap between first and second place. Dawsey's race car is just bounding around in the front end. I get the impression that it's purposing in a way that it had not been earlier in the race, as we see Connor coming back onto the racetrack after his earlier crash. Three abreast ahead of Dawsey, who is now 7.3 seconds behind the leader. And Bear, who swears he should have won this race last year, looks like he is ready to make up for lost ground. Moving into the 15th minute of the final hour of this race. It's 8.6 seconds between first and second place. Bear has been easily pulling away. Notice that he was right in front of the number 5 of Rich Fenwick on the restart. He's got a quarter lap on Fenwick now in just a few laps since we came back to green. Smoke coming from the number 12 of Mike St. John. That is something to watch. St. John coming out of the fourth turn in the white, red, and blue number 12, coming through the intersection just ahead of Bear, who just barely got ahead of the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore and the number 1 of Dawsey. St. John's car is starting to show smoke. Often in a figure-8 race or in any sort of automobile race, that is the sort of thing that does not go away, and St. John not going as fast as he once did. At 325 laps, the leader was the number 94, Fred Bear Jr. The number 4, Bruce Tunney, was running one lap down. Third place, also a lap down, the number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr. Fourth place, the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, who was 2 laps down. Fifth place, the number 5 of Rich Fenwick, an unspecified number of laps off the pace. Two cars crashed out of turn number 4, the 91 of Lanham and the number 93 of Mike Nelson. Nelson facing the wrong way, gets disengaged, keeps on going. 94 Bear avoids all of this, although he almost got into the number 44 of Jerry Brown. Now there's Bruce Tunney almost taking out 3 drivers, including the number 1 of Dawsey, who's trying to come through the intersection through turns number 3 and 4. And it becomes clear now that Dawsey does not have the sheer speed he did earlier. Dawsey, in fact, has fallen 13 seconds behind the leader, plus 1 lap. So as we work and close the 16th minute of the final hour of this World Figure 8 Championship, it looks more and more as if this race has now developed into Fred Bear's hands. Even a collision with his teammate has not taken him out. Even a spin right ahead of him by Charles Cross has not done it. Even putting the number 91 of Rich Lanham has not changed things. Lanham drove right into the back end of Bear, trying to get some payback after Bear clipped him coming off turn number 4. Lanham came within an inch of wrecking the leader. Now Victor Reinbold on the racetrack in the number 28. And Bear sails past him through the intersection ahead of the number 72 of McMurtry. So now, time and the crossover are Fred Bear Jr.'s enemies. Bear, I'm certain, would love to see this race end right now, but it's still another 43 minutes to go in this contest, and Bear has a lot of laps to go at about 3 laps a minute. That means he's got maybe 120 laps to go at this pace. And the crossover, he almost ran into the number 71 of course, and then almost got punched by the number 15 of Dwayne Lee. Just as they told you a few seconds ago, Fred Bear Jr.'s enemies are time in the crossover, and the crossover almost finished him off that time. And Bear recovers from a crash that would have ended his race and goes through the crossover as if nothing happened. And now we have 48 minutes and 20 seconds left to go in the World Championship of Figure 8 Racing. And Bear continues to hold on to the lead as behind him the field starts to break loose as he now is coming up on Mike Nelson, and Bear in brave traffic 3-4 wide. Bear cut between Nelson and St. John underneath Rodney Sizemore, taking huge chances with the World Championship in his pocket. And here's the situation. Bear is really stomping the field right now. Nobody has been able to get close to him. He is still taking unimaginable risks with the World Championship and the $10,000 first prize. You would think he would take it easy and play a defensive battle, but instead, Bear looking more and more like Rich Vocal than anybody else we've seen. There are some drivers that say their rhythm can be broken easily. There are some people that say their rhythm is full speed all the time, as you'd have with such drivers like Mike Eddy or drivers such as Jeff Gordon or drivers such as Jack Hewitt or Rich Vogel who don't know how to slow down and preserve their car. Fred Bear is cutting through traffic like a knife, but of course that is a double-edged blade that he is using out there, and that knife can cut him as much as it can cut everybody else on the racetrack. 41 minutes left to go in the World Championship of Figure 8 Racing. Fred Bear continuing to slice through traffic, trying to avoid disaster as nobody is able to run with him. And Bear's getting close to putting Dossie second lap down as he cuts through traffic at the intersection. Ryder and Dwayne Lee have a close encounter. Bear almost ran on the side end of the number 71, 72 of Curtis McMurtry. And we're coming up to another one of those milestones as far as the lap count is concerned. We're coming up to 20 minutes. 20 minutes left to go. Make that 40 minutes. 40 minutes left to go to the World Championships. 40 minutes to go. The World Championship of Figure 8 Racing. As cars get almost put together in the intersection. But instead of a resounding thud, we have a screech of brakes and those roar of racing motors as they turn to the crossover at absolute full speed. Now collision between the leader, the number 94 Bear, and Wayne Newkirk's number 05. Make a note of that. Those cars sideswipe each other with 39 minutes and 40 seconds left to go. Let's see if they damage Bear's car and slow into the tail. As Bear finds an empty intersection this time. Again, Bear in 94 has a lead of 1 lap over the second place, number 4 of Bruce Tunney. Of 1 lap over the third place, number 1 of Jake Rossi Jr. And of 2 laps over the fourth place, number 15 of Dwayne Lee. And Dwayne Lee managed to cut between Newkirk and Mike St. John to the intersection that time. Now Bear bounces off the number 83 Country Road. Almost got costed by the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. Again, I find myself amazed at how hard Fred Bear is riding here the closing minutes of this World Championship. And watch out as the number 9 of Burgess almost gets down. Now we're developing a race for second place, a lap down between the number 1 of Rossi and number 4 of Bruce Tunney. There's Tunney and Rossi racing together at the intersection, and as they race each other with intense violence, they are almost almost caught, keeping number 94 clear. This is something Bear hits the market tire coming through turn number 2. Well, he doesn't want to see those guys disengage rather than engage, so he has a little more room. Now there's Reichert, the number 17, meandering through the intersection. As Newkirk almost gets Tunney, as does number 02 car. They somehow keep on going. And now Victor Rav over Green come to the intersection almost, like St. John. Still race for second place is the number 1 Rossi versus on number 4 of Bruce Tunney for the number 1 spot. One down behind Bear. And now Bruce Tunney separated by Rossi on fifth. That's an interesting situation because Bear's been going through the intersection the last couple of laps between Tunney and Dawson. This Tunney goes to the intersection behind Dawson, which means those drivers are closing up on him if they're right now. Bear goes to the outside and Bear to secret ground and probably collide for a moment and keep on going. Bruce Tunney incoming traffic ahead of him. That's underneath the number 33 of Doug Bray. And watch out, the intersection almost got joint lead. And Bear uses that confrontation to put the lead to third right now. He fights back to try to move around Bear once again. Bear through the intersection, just let a front brake to go through wide echelon right to the third corner. As Lee would like to stay up with Bear here midway through the 24th hour of this race. Bear almost gets nailed by Charles Mills at the crossover. So many forms of racing where you have a big lead. You would think the leader would arrive, so maybe Mikey would arrive, but unfortunately, big road racing with a constant challenge to the crossover. Bear almost got splashed into the intersection by the number 12 of Mike St. John, and I don't know how he survived. Heavy traffic at the intersection. Bear cuts through it. Just in the Rodney Sizemore cut. So Bear here at the end of the 24th minute, the final hour of the race, coming through the intersection every time, taking big risks, trying to come through there, maintain his advantage while in traffic. The number 4 of Bruce Tunney, the number 1 of Ted Rossi Jr. And right now they're doing battle for the number 1 spot. At the intersection, St. John and Tiny gap between the number 5 of Fenwick and the number 15 of Dwayne Lee as those drivers continue to battle each other hard. And now the Dawson car closes on Bruce Tunney once again, coming through turns number 3 and 4 of their 370th lap, the 371st lap for Fred Bear Jr. Through the 25th minute of this contest. 3 wide for one of the 2 out cars involved, the number 38. Number 4 of Tunney gets sideways and turning the hammer Dawson all over. Dawson goes, hands out for a lane as Tunney bounces off number 84, Harris Jr. Almost knocked both of those cars out of the race, and that works for Tunney because he ejects the Harris Jr. car, number 7 of Rodney Sizemore's team show, and the Dawson car. In the middle of all this, Bear is saying thank you very much because he's take no prisoners. The idea is starting to work. He's closing back up on the rest of these drivers as Jerry Lee won the crossover. Almost brought about 6 cars together with his easy run through the intersection. And through all this, Bear, I don't wonder how much longer they start here. I can tell you, they'll go another 34 minutes and 40 seconds. Underneath Rodney Sizemore. Cars are stopped for where he hit the brakes too. Front man out, far line going into the first corner. They're up near the wall, passing drivers right and left. And in the meantime, we watch as the battle for the runner-up spot has now disappeared because number 4, as number 4 of Tunney's motorway, the number 1 of Dawson. We watch as Bear comes across the start to finish this lap. See how Bear is doing. You saw a little smoke coming from one of those cars, and more of the fact that involved Bear and slowing down for him like St. John and Rick Delicious with the number 95 of Pete Gibson. Bear got clipped by Kenny Rankin going into turn number 1. And somebody in that pack is starting to show some smoke. Which one? I don't know. Now St. John and that number 12 had been showing some smoke a little earlier as Bear moves around him. But now the Bear is running clear, and we worked at the end of the 27th minute of this race. He wants to see his Bear smoking. The answer is no. He's okay. So far, anyway. There is some still coming from Nelson's number 93, but there's nothing new here. Nothing new there, anyway. Country Brown got hit by the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. Bear was stalled, but he's still running in the lead. Bear has only a couple of seconds to get restarted. But now Bruce Tunney, the second place car, has piled in as Bear's been hit by a slower car. And that take no prisoners, a soft medium fielding. Now Bear's got only a couple of seconds to get restarted for him to have a chance to hold on to the lead as we are under yellow. Bear's got to get restarted, or Dossie will pass him for the lead this time by. The field has stacked up and is completely slowed down. Bear still can't get the car to run. And the number 1 of Dossie is mired in traffic. He goes underneath and takes the lead under caution. Now Bear backs away and will have a chance to get restarted, but he lost so much time under caution, and we're not even certain if that car is ready to roll. Bear may have stalled the car, and if that's the case, he has got to take it into the pits. Bear is signaling for somebody to give him a push as he stalled the car. And that could have ended Bear's championship chances. He was going 3 wide. On the inside was the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore. In the middle was the number 83 of Country Brown. On the outside was Bear. Sizemore and Brown got together. That moved Bear to a spin, and now Bear is going to be pushed into the pits and out of the race for the time being. He is now stalled. And now again, if you stall like that, you've got to make a stop into the pits. I believe he is going to have to make a pit stop. I think that's the regulation in this event. There were 2 other drivers that got sucked into that mess. One of them was number 33 of Doug Gray, and I believe the other one may have been the Curtis McMurtry car. And Bear's going to make a pit stop anyway because he's got a flat right rear tire. Bear has a flat right rear tire. He's going to have to make a pit stop to change that tire, and in the process, he's going to lose even more ground. So again, we'll have to double check the status of these drivers to see if Bruce Tunney or Jack Dossie Jr. will come through in the lead. I believe it will be Bruce, the number 4. Again, Bear comes off the track and out of the race. He'll have to, at a minimum, replace that flat right rear tire and lose more ground. I believe he's out in the top 3 at this point. All of that happened just before a half hour before the race was over. And there's the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, who you would score as the 3rd place car going in and making a pit stop. Again, for our scorers, you see the cars going underneath the marker tire over in turn number 3. That is not a marker tire violation. They're being directed to go that way by the race officials. That is not a marker tire violation. Bear's come back through the pits and is ready to come back onto the track after a quick change of that right rear tire. But he has lost so much ground now that he's going to have an excruciating and a tough time catching back up. Dwayne Lee also comes back onto the racetrack after making a stop with some damage. The number 33 of Doug Gray goes in, and that's the McMurtry, number 72, hop on the hook, getting set for another trip back into the pit area. This is McMurtry's second or third crash of the night. That doesn't slow him down that much. They just fix the car and bring him back in. In this case, looks like they ripped up the rear axle or the mounting thereof, and they're going to have to just drag that puppy off, and they'll throw it onto the jack stands, fix what there is to be fixed, and let him finish a few more laps. 27 minutes, 30 seconds left to go in the World Figure 8 Championship. We were about ready to establish a couple of things. First, I may have made an error in the call of that race. I definitely did make an error in the call of the race when we saw Tony got stopped and Dawsey went into the lead. The rule was that you can't advance position under the yellow, so that pass under the yellow did not count, and Tony goes into first place. Have I misled anybody with that particular call of my race? I apologize. Dawsey was not allowed to pass Tony and take the lead under those circumstances, when both cars were still running under the yellow. So Tony comes back to the lead. Second place will be Dawsey, also on the lead lap. Third place, Fred Bear Jr. Our scores tell us that Bear is 2 laps down to the 94. Fourth place is the number 15 of Dwayne Lee, who is shown as 3 laps down. Of course, Bear was 2 laps down before the pit stop. That's an important point. And then you've got number 5 of Frederick, who's running in 5th place. Another important point was that under that green flag sequence before the caution came out for the 5-car chain reaction crash, as we see Doug Briggs come back onto the racetrack and probably start, that the number 4 of Tony was able to mark away from the number 1 of Dawsey. Not only in the book here, with 25 minutes and 45 seconds left to go in this year's World Figure 8 Championship. There's Dawsey coming from turn number 2. And between first and second place, 2.6 seconds. Dawsey got roughed up by number 83, Quincy Brown. We heard that before. Coming out of turn number 3. And now there's number 29 of Jeremy Warren, sideways in front of the field to come down to caution. The gap had increased to 3.4 seconds before that yellow was displayed. And watch out, 6 cars have crashed under caution as Brooker got into it with the number 33 of Doug Gray, the 77 of Ford, the number 20 of Connor, his teammate Bear, the number 94, and the number 22 of Chris Green. It's a 7-car chain reaction crash under yellow, and watch out, they almost ran into the track truck. They've run out of room to race. And Bear's got another torn-up race car, and what a disappointment this has been for this driver that had the World Championship in his hands no more than a few minutes ago, back to the pits for repairs. Tony, the number 4, holds on to the lead. As we were about ready to say just before that green came out, Bruce had been able to pull away from Dawsey in the last sequence. And remember, Dawsey had been slowing down after he hit the marker tire. Then his car got put back together, but he realized it wasn't making that much progress. It remains to be seen whether anybody can do anything about Bruce Tony, who again looks like a driver that, and we aren't jinxing him by saying this, had the race in his hands when things started to get strange. material we put down in turn number 1 to pick up the stuff that got dropped all over the racetrack, and we'll probably have one more lap under caution before we move out. And as we come across the line this time, race car lights will turn off. Well, I think we may go one more time. We'll watch the lights on top of the base car to see when we're going to come to the restart. 18 minutes and 15 seconds left to go in this race. Race car lights are off. Bruce Teddy, the number 4, brings the field at full speed coming out of turn number 4, almost running over the base car as we come back to green. Now it starts to seem it's slippery in turn number 1. Not everybody manages to get through there, although they fan out too wide as usual. Now there's Dawson trying to stay with the number 4 of Bruce Teddy. As we go into the third corner, our stopwatch shows the gap between first and second place is 1.2 seconds, and this is on lap number 400. And now we watch as the cars come across the line. It's still 1.2 seconds as Dawson is almost up to the car by the number 71 of Close. Now looks as if Dawson has himself a good run on the leader as he starts to try to close up on the number 4 of Bruce Teddy coming out of the fourth turn. Yep, at the crossover, Teddy has to hit the brakes, and Dawson is on the charge. So with 17 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, we've got ourselves a straight run for the lead in the World Championship of Figure 8 racing. And coming into the fourth turn of lap number 403, rather than Teddy pulling away from Dawson, it's the other way around. Dawson is attacking for first place in turn number 1. So you see Rackley spun. There's Dawson on the inside of Teddy. Open position, slips back just a bit as Rackley gets restarted out with a spin. Dawson attacks Teddy to the outside in turn number 3 as we work to the 16th minute, rather fewer than 17 minutes left to go. Dawson hooks to the outside, making pass on Teddy. In turn number 2, the leaders come to the intersection, just barely avoiding Rackley's car. Going into the third car, the close up of the number 71 of Steve Frost. Through turn number 4, there's Teddy running into the back end, and Frost almost pushing into Dawson's pennant. Dawson takes advantage of that with an outside run on Teddy through turns number 1 and 2 to 456 lap lead. The leaders are side by side, going into the third corner with Teddy on the outside, Dawson on the inside. Dawson hits the McIntyre, almost drifts into Teddy. They stay side by side through turn number 4 as they cross the stripe. Dawson's got a nose out in front, and Teddy almost comes in. Teddy runs back to the inside. Dawson and Teddy touch in turn number 2. Dawson's got a height advantage on Teddy. Coming to the intersection for a short into Raymond's car. That gives Dawson a height advantage as they come through at the end of the 44th minute of the final hour of this race. And Dawson is brought back as they have to watch out for the number 71 of Steve Moore, who may have stalled. Now he backs out of the leader's way as they close up. Uther, they watch out for rival at stop number 92. And now, the Uther car gets spun on by Jerry Brown. That almost takes out Dwayne Lee. And now the crossover, they almost run into Steve Frost, number 71. And somehow they keep on going. And now Dawson with a fresher, more powerful car as the number 4 of Bruce Teddy almost gets hit by the number 95 of Gibson at the intersection. And Dawson is pulling away, looking for a 4th World Figure 8 Championship on a race that almost got away from him several times. And there is no sign of Fred Bear Jr. Now Dawson's got more trouble. It's small traffic here as we have 15 minutes left to go in this race with a 1.4 second advantage. He forced to go right high in turns number 1 and 2. Behind the number 5 of Fenwick. Tony close in 2 seconds. But now he's got 2 cars between himself as he goes into the third corner. Dawson with the advantage. Now it's time to go. Coming out of turn number 4. Gap is up to 1.2 seconds once again. Dawson still caught in train. Ducks underneath the number 38 of Rackley, coming out of turn number 2. Dawson gets number 5 of Fenwick, coming out of turn number 4. But that slowed Dawson down, and there's Tony closing up to within a half second in turn number 3 and 4. Now Dawson underneath Fenwick, putting Fenwick between himself and the number 4 of Bruce Teddy as Dawson has cleared that gauntlet of traffic better than did Tony, who has to go 3 wide underneath Fenwick and Kim Gibson out of turn number 4 of lap number 413. Dawson again hits the marker tire in turn number 1. That was almost as I'm doing a little earlier. 13 minutes and 50 seconds left to go in the World Figure Eight Championship. The number 83 of Country Brown into confrontation with Newkirk spins in turn number 1. He's way ahead of the number 1 of Rossi, who comes through the intersection. A big crowd between himself and the second place number 4. Bruce Tunney gap is 2.1 seconds. So Rossi looking at a 450 lap pace here in this World Figure Eight Championship, trying to hold on as he wants to back up to the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore with a 1.6 second advantage over Tunney. And now Rossi's in a situation where he cannot relax. Bear might have been able to take it easy with a 1 lap lead. But now Rossi's going to fight for all his work with the former track champion on his tail. 1.7 seconds back, heavy traffic ahead. Both drivers in the lead, both working in the heavy traffic as now Rossi's coming behind 4 slower cars. One of his Country Brown bounces off the line tire. Rossi goes to the inside of him, and rookie Chris Green at the same time that Bruce Tunney goes about the number 7 of Rodney Sizemore coming out of the 4th car. Gap is between first and second place, 1.3 seconds as we're looking at the closest finish in the history of the World Figure Eight Championship in this event. If it keeps on going this way. But Dawson's starting to have his way in the traffic. The gap now is 1.6 seconds as Dawson is cutting through the traffic. Just a little better than is Bruce Tunney as that gap is 2+ seconds as Tunney's in traffic. Dawson in speed, watches the intersection for Rackley. 12 minutes and 20 seconds left in the World Figure Eight Championship. Now, the important point on the end of this race as Tunney comes through the intersection has to hit the brakes to keep him hitting under cars. The checkered flag comes out at the starter's discretion at the end of the 3-hour period. The race does not end at 3 hours. The race ends on the checkered flag when the starter decides he will display it. There's always been uncertainty on when that checkered flag will be displayed. There's no such thing as a white flag in this contest. Only the checkered flag that ends the race when the starter decides it's time to put it out when he sees the 3-hour mark shown on the scoreboard, which is the official timekeeper for the World Figure Eight Championship. And Tunney is following the great distance lead. 2.3 seconds between first and second place. With 11 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in this World Figure Eight Championship. Dawson in a situation where he cannot rest. He must press forward as hard as possible. Tunney must do the same thing. Dawson in heavy traffic backs down. Tunney in heavy traffic keeps on going. Let's see if either driver had an advantage or disadvantage in that clot of traffic at the intersection. Dawson still runs free. Tunney following some traffic 2.4 seconds back. You might say there's not many cars at the racetrack, but still about 20 cars. That's more than enough for any number of things to happen to these leaders as they charge through the closing laps of the World Figure Eight Championship. Now trouble at the intersection, Tunney works into the 0-2 traffic, getting hit from the number 71 of Coles. Coles gets restarted. He's already ripped his car apart again, and he stops at the north lobe of the intersection. He's far enough out of the way. Will stay number green. Rossi trying to move around the number 38 of Kenny Rackley. The number 4 of Tunney comes across. 1.5 seconds back, working into 10 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in this World Figure Eight Championship. Now the number 20 of John Connor, who bounced off someone and gotten with the wall over in turn number 4. He's not moving on the outside of that corner up next to the wall. Let's see if that crosses the yellow here. Race officials will keep track of that. As Dawson continues to run through traffic, gap between first and second place, now down to 9/10 of a second. Connor can't get that car to run forward or backwards. Now he moves forward an inch, he moves backwards an inch. It's like being in rush hour traffic at Castleton. Dawson holds on to the advantage until he tries to close up. He's 1.4 seconds back with yellow coming out because of the Connor car. Yellow comes out because of Connor's style car in turn number 4. And that will let Tunney move to the tail end of Dawson's car for what could be the final restart in the World Championship of Figure Eight Racing. And so now we are faced with what will be a straight shootout for the World Championship between Dawson and the number 1 and the number 4 of Tunney. They will restart nose to tail right behind the base car as the push truck goes out to get Connor's number 20. Awards in this World Figure Eight Championship. The driver that has the best improvement from start to finish will win the $100 award named in honor of the great Figure Eight champion Sonny Thompson. There will be a Sonny Eaton Memorial Award named for the best first-year start in the World Figure Eight Championship. Pole position, Fred Bear Jr. has already won the $100 bonus for fastest qualifier. And the Kenny's Auto Sale $100 award for the best stock class driver in the World Figure Eight Championship. That's yet to be decided. Eight minutes and 30 seconds left in the World Figure Eight Championship. Dawsey, the number 1, in the lead, the number 4 of Tunney. As Connor's car comes off on the hook, we're ready for the end game of this World Figure Eight Championship. Not that much time left to go. 7.5 minutes, 7 minutes and 20 seconds left in the contest. And now there comes Connor's number 20 off on the hook. Looks like his race has been run. And Fred Bear's cars that started in the top 4, and each one that had a chance to win this race and ran magnificently when it went right. When things went wrong, it fell apart in a hurry. And Bear with this one with the knowledge that he had a chance to win the World Championship, and it went away in one frightening moment over in the third corner. Pace car picks up the leaders again in between the number 1 of Dawsey, the number 4 of Tunney. And we're ready for the straight fight here. 6 minutes and 40 seconds left to go in the World Figure Eight Championship. That's maybe 20 laps of racing. Start. Now on this restart, Tunney will have the advantage on the inside. He comes to first place. Dawsey races with them wheel-to-wheel in turns number 1 and 2. As they come through the second corner, Tunney's got the advantage. He takes a hit from Dawsey coming out of the second corner. Not much of a hit. Dawsey looks to the outside through turn number 3, staying with Tunney through turn number 4 as we finish the 433rd lap of this race. With exactly 6 minutes left to go, this time by. Tunney's got the lead. Dawsey all over him. It's a sprint after 2 hours and 54 minutes of endurance racing. Dawsey looked to the inside. Tunney holds it on to look to be the most dramatic finish ever in the World Figure Eight Championship. Out of the fourth corner, as they finished the 434th lap of the race, they had to hesitate to keep from running in the Steve Reiner in the number 17. And notice running with these drivers, the number 23 of Eddie Van Meter, who is some distance down. 5.5 minutes left to go. Tunney is holding on to the advantage. Dawsey trying to chase him down. The crossover now comes into play with lap cars all over the place. Dawsey looks to the inside of Tunney, but drifts high in turn number 1. Tunney uses that to hold on to the advantage. Tunney attacks to the inside of Tunney going into the third corner. Tunney cuts him off, holds down to the inside line. Dawsey has no place to try to pass him. With 5 minutes and 15 seconds left, actually. Lap traffic ahead, about 7 drivers racing fairly slowly, coming through the intersection, 4 abreast. Here come the leaders looking for some place to go. Dawsey fakes to the inside of Tunney, still can't make the pass. Lap traffic ahead. 4 minutes and 50 seconds left to go. Tunney almost spun out Reiner. Now cut between several cars. Dawsey tries to use the advantage here at the end of the race. But instead he loses a length as they go underneath Chris Green's number 22. We have now 4 minutes and 40 seconds left to go as they go above the Steve Frost number 71. Leaders are out of traffic. Crossover traffic to be encountered. Tunney did not back down when he almost ran into Fenwick at the intersection. Tunney got sideways in turn number 1. Dawsey may have spotted the weakness in turn number 2 of lap number 439. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left to go in the World Championship. Victor Reibold stops in the number 92. He gets restarted to stay under green. Leaders now move around Browns, number 44, closing on Reibold. Tunney holds on to the advantage. He still slides a bit in turns number 1 and 2. And there's Dawsey trying to move through the inside. Reibold will pick off Dawsey's preferred inside line, almost clips Dawsey going into the third corner. 4 minutes left to go. The World Figure Eight championship. It's still a straight fight between Tony, the number 4, and the number 1 at Dawsey. They race nose to tail coming out of turn number 2. On lap number 441, they have to watch out for the 17 of Winder. It almost scatters the leaders, but they stay nose to tail. Now Tony slips in 3. Dawsey to the inside, looks at 4, can't make the pass as they come up to Witten's car and Green's machine. 2 cars directly ahead of Tony. He ducks to the inside and 3 abreast racing. Dawsey tried to guess through an outside line when he got the block. It didn't work. He has to pull up alongside the number 4 of Tony. Now he falls a couple of lanes back as they go into the 3rd turn. With 3 minutes, with at least 3 minutes left to go in this contest. 3 minutes and 20 seconds left to go. Now we come to 2.5 minutes left to go, and still Tony in first, Dawsey in second as we see it as we go into the first turn of the 446th lap of this race, coming through turns number 1 and 2. And there's Dawsey all over Tony going into the 3rd corner, looking to make the pass. In the 3rd turn of this race, we have 2 minutes and 5 seconds left to go in this contest, and there's Tony still ahead of Dawsey going into the 3rd corner. Coming out of the 2nd corner, Tony stays out of Dawsey. Dawsey aims to the inside. Tony cuts him off. Going into the 3rd corner, trying the intersection. Cars almost stop. They give us some pain. We've got 1 minute and 50 seconds left to go in the World Figure-Eight Championship as Dawsey looks to the inside of Tony coming into the first turn of the 448th lap. Tony still holds on to the advantage. Dawsey coming out of the 2nd spot. Out of turn number 2. Looks for the pass going into the 3rd corner. Okay, they can go. And Dawsey almost got cut by the number 23 of Van Meter. Minute and a half to go in the World Championship. Dawsey tries to make the pass in traffic. Got picked off by the number 44 Brown. The fast move will be to the outside. He got hit right by the Jerry Brown car. And Dawsey will go into the lead. Going into the first turn of lap number 449. Tony got cut by Jerry Brown and almost flipped. And Dawsey goes into first place. And now we've got 1 minute and 5 seconds left to go. And Tony, who is in striking distance of the World Figure-Eight Championship, got wrecked by the other car. And there goes Dawsey hauling home free. As a dramatic incident with 1 minute and 10 seconds left to go. And the World Figure-Eight Championship is probably decided it for Jack Dawsey Jr. Here's Dawsey going into the first turn with 45 seconds left to go. And Tony's car will no longer run. And Dawsey coming out of the 2nd turn with 35 seconds left to go. Holds on to a major advantage as Rich Tony, picked number 4, sits in the south over the infield, unable to go. And now, after a 3-hour marathon, it comes down to Jack Dawsey Jr., the luckier of the traffic, with 20 seconds left to go. We'll follow the tradition of the World Figure-Eight Championship and count down the final 10 seconds and then look for the checkered flag. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 0, and the 3 hours are completed. Now look for the flag man to give us the checkered flag as we see Doug Briggs spins. Here he comes for 2 in a row for Jack Dawsey Jr., who didn't have this one sewed up until 1 minute and 10 seconds left to go. Unofficially, 2nd place will go to Drake, and maybe salvaging 3rd place would be a deeply disappointed Bruce Tony. As Jack Dawsey Jr. comes home the winner for the 2nd year in a row, the 4th time in his career. There is one driver out on the racetrack that is going to be deeply disappointed, but deserves a lot of credit from you, the race fans, for the way things turned out. He is the lonely man who is walking across the racetrack who came within 1 minute and 10 seconds of winning the World Figure 8 Championship. His name is Bruce Tunney. He is a former Indianapolis Speedrome track champion. At this moment, he is deeply and bitterly disappointed over losing the World Figure 8 Championship. He too deserves your credit for fighting hard to the very end. Bruce Tunney went out a champion. So as we congratulate Bruce Tunney for coming so close to winning this year's World Championship of Figure 8 Racing, coming home the winner this year at the Indianapolis Speedrome for the second week in a row will be the number 1 of Jack Dawsey Jr. And as Jack Dawsey Jr. wins this World Figure 8 Championship for the 4th time, a welcoming party of his crew, including car owner Joe Simpson, will come out to join him, and there to greet him at the start-finish line will be Al Stilley, and to present the World Championship trophy, Jonathan Bird of Jonathan Bird's Cafeteria. It has been a long and torturous journey to get here for Jack Dawsey Jr. Ron Thomasik finished this car only about a few weeks ago, and now, after working on this machine for the better part of a month, coming home the winner of his 4th World Figure 8 Championship and looking all but exhausted inside the car after realizing what a close battle it was all night. Here he is out of the car, the new and future World Figure 8 Champion, Jack Dawsey Jr.
The closest finish in World Figure 8 history, and what a battle it was. And I'm in disbelief. After 3 hours, and it boils down to the last minute and a half. I'm also in disbelief that Jonathan Bird is back. He loves doing this. I'm going to have him present the World Championship trophy, 4th time in 5 years. Jack Dawsey Jr. What a job. Are they getting any easier?
No, this one here, we was the 2nd place car. I done burned up the tires. Bruce got into some trouble, got, taken around, and, and actually at that point in time was the 2nd place car. I want to take my hat off to Bruce Tunney.
A 5-time winner, 1 4-time winner, 1 3-time winner. Are there going to be 2 5-time winners?
Well, if I got anything to do with it, my car owner keeps spending that money, I guarantee you we're going to be trying.
Honor to be able to award this, and I tell you the truth, it's a shame that only one guy could win this race as good a race as it was.
Well, I tell you what, like I said, Bruce Tunney had us covered. I done burned up the tires trying to get by him the first time. And all I could do is just sit there and kind of ride it out. And a car got into him, and he spun. And I'm just glad that, he and I didn't have that kind of contact, because I wouldn't want to win it like that if I spun him.
Let's hear it one final time for our great champion. What a tremendous run. It doesn't get any better than this. Congratulations to the crew. I tell you, here you go, Al. Jonathan Bird, you've said it all. Ladies and gentlemen, your 1997 World Championship Figure 8 champion, Jack Dawsey Jr.